following is a presentation of Disruption Networks.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Pasalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Pasalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Pasalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.
Good evening, baseball fans worldwide, nationwide, and right here in the central New York, Utica, New York, Disruption Network Studios. Live, we are the Baseline. Thanks for tuning in. JP here with my co-host with the co-most, SPG, Mr. Sean Gaffney.
Hey, everybody.
Man?
What's going on, guys? Wow, a lot to talk about this week.
So much.
All sorts of interesting tidbits and headlines and ongoings around Major League Baseball that made some major news this week.
Such a huge week. So the first week of May, starting to heat up. Weather-wise, listen, if you've been tuning in with us every week, you know we've been commenting on the weather outside as we come into the show. Today, kind of mild. This is the first time we have some mild weather. T-shirt weather. I didn't have to wear a jacket in here. I didn't have to worry about shoveling snow. May has brought, October weather for us. So we got to be thankful for that. Lot to get to. First thing that I want to touch on is congratulations to the newest member of the 3,000 Hit Club, Mr. Albert Pujols.
Albert Pujols, yeah, that was really cool. I was actually tuned into that game. Well, I think I was watching MLB Network, and anytime he was up, it was, the Albert Pujols watch. And, all right, let's go to live coverage of Albert Pujols here, and we'll see if he can get his 3,000th hit. And he did, and it was pretty cool. He did it in Seattle, and there was a bunch of Angels fans up there that must have been kind of traveling along with the team and going to every single game because they wanted to witness history, and they wanted to see Pujols' 3,000th hit. And it was really cool. And to tie into another major story this week, Ichiro was in the house up there in Seattle, and he abruptly announced his retirement and that he's joining the front office for the Seattle Mariners. But it was cool. Ichiro was there and came out and gave Pujols a hug, and there was a pretty cool interaction to see.
I think it's worthy of noting that officially, I don't think Ichiro really retired. His agent apparently in the media left it open that 2019 is a new year, and he's just stepping into a new role to pursue perhaps playing again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's nothing is official.
Bernie Williams took 20 years to retire officially.
I was just going to mention Bernie Williams.
So, maybe we're seeing the same type thing with Ichiro. Let him hang on. I say I'd like to see him go back maybe and play 1 year in Japan.
That would be kind of a cool way to
cool little
full circle type end to his playing career.
A lot of talk, chatter, MLB posts on Facebook and such and social media. A lot of chatter about where Ichiro ranks as in the echelon of good hitters out there, or the world's best hitters of all time, and people discounting the value of singles almost like it wasn't a big deal. The guy came over here in his 27-year-old year. 27.
And you mentioned singles, and a lot of people look at him as a singles hitter, and the stats kind of do back that up to an extent, but he's said it multiple times, and I've heard broadcasters and other baseball people say if Ichiro wanted to go out there and hit 30 home runs a year, he would have been able to do that.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have hit.
He was
357.
Purposely trying to do his job of getting on base, stealing a base, scoring a bunch of runs.
And nobody did it better for his peak. Nobody did it better. It just didn't happen. 3,089 hits in his career in the majors, just in the majors. And, I hear so much chatter out there about discounting the baseball or the brand of baseball in Japan. Don't discount the brand of baseball in Japan. It is not equivalent to AAA. It's way more competitive. It's on a higher level than a AAA. Maybe the caliber of player in terms of physical ability and average fastball type thing, and maybe they're on par with the AAA, but in terms of experience and knowledge of the game, they play a different game over there in Japan. And for him to come over in his age 27 year and rack up a total of 3,089 hits, it's obscene. So anybody that doesn't think that Ichiro was one of the best putters of the bat on the ball, whether or not you want to consider him what you consider a hitter, you're looking at Ted Williams and Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron's probably it for me. It's probably who I would say. He checks off a lot of boxes. He drove in a lot of runs. He hit for an average. He has 3,000 hits, 600 homers plus. We're going to talk about that in a second. But Ichiro sits kind of squarely inside, the guys that could put the bat on the ball for sure. One of the best leadoff hitters. If a guy named Ricky Henderson doesn't exist, you'd probably consider Ichiro one of the top guys up near the top of the lineup for his career.
Yeah, I'd have no argument with that at all.
Sits atop currently if he is active, which he has yet to officially retire, so he's active. He sits atop with 3,089 hits. He's number one, followed by Beltre, Pujols with 3,002 now, and Cabrera. Cabrera is at 2,666 in his age 35 year. Still got to do a little bit of work to get to 3,000, but more than likely he's the next. Robinson Cano with 2,410, and that's amongst active players. 2,100 is number 6. That's Jose Reyes. I don't think he's getting 900 hits. So you're legitimately looking at Miguel Cabrera being the next one. Now, 2,666.
How old did you say Miggy was?
He's 35. He's in his 16th year.
That right there will tell you how difficult of an accomplishment getting 3,000 hits in the major leagues is, because Miguel Cabrera came up, I believe, as a 19-year-old. So you figure he's 15, 16 years into a amazing, legendary career.
Triple Crown winner.
His average is always above 300.
One of the most feared hitters, certainly of his generation, but maybe one of the most feared hitters of all time. He was very tough to pitch to. He was not an easy out for, the 10 years of his career, his 10-year peak. Is he in the decline? Yes, and now, we understand that he's on the disabled list.
He's off to a pretty good start, too. I want to say, without having his numbers in front of me, he's batting somewhere north of 320 right now. But that shows you how hard that accomplishment is when you got a player at that level, Hall of Fame level player that is 16 years into his career, and he's still, about 300, a little over 300 hits.
No, he's
shy.
334 hits shy. Again, without having his numbers in front of me, because I didn't know that we would skew off on Miggy for a second here. Without having his numbers in front of me, he probably had about 150 hits last year, maybe. Kind of not a great year, but if he had 150 hits, that's a lot of hits, right? 334 hits. You're looking at a career year and a mediocre year back-to-back, but you're looking at 2020, 2021 before he gets to 3,000. So what Albert Pujols did is not going to be achieved for a while. And what Albert Pujols did in terms of being 3,000 hits and 600-plus home runs now, that's something that only 4 men have done. 4. So he's the 30th person to get to the 3,000 hit club, but now only 4 people in the history of the game have had 600 and 3,000. So Albert Pujols, congratulations out there to the machine. Awesome career. Glad we got to watch it.
Cheers to him. He's been
a
joy to watch over
from a
his career.
virtually unknown to an instant impact from the moment he stepped on the field to one of the most feared hitters of all time, and now to his Angels legacy that certainly is going to be shining because of moments like this, and more to come for Albert Pujols. So congratulations to the machine.
One of the other big topics this week, major news in New York City. Matt Harvey has been designated for assignment by the New York Mets. He's on waivers. I think his waiver period ends tomorrow, if I recall right. I think it's a 2-day waiver period, which would have started yesterday. So you got
to think there's going to be a claim out there, no?
We'll find out, I think, within 24 hours now what's going to happen there. If there's not a claim, he becomes a free agent. If there is a claim, then the Mets can pull him back, I believe,
yes,
or they can negotiate a trade, which is obviously what would happen. They would negotiate a trade with somebody at this point.
Correct.
So he refused to go to the minors, and they, I guess, talked to his agent, and they said, "Hey, here's our final interaction with you. You either, agree. I know you don't want to do it, or that's it. We're done. The Matt Harvey era is over in New York. At least with the New York Mets.
At least with the New York Mets. It's an interesting point because the Yankees at this point, well, after watching Domingo Germán pitch today, I don't think that the Yankees are as starved at that 5th spot as they thought they would be with Jordan Montgomery going.
Yeah, what a start today. Both those guys, Clevenger.
Well, how about his relief
too?
of an injured Montgomery plus today's start? A pretty impressive, what was it, 4 innings the first time and 6 today? That's a pretty impressive 10-inning stretch against the 2 best lineups. Potentially, you got to add Boston in there, but the 2 best lineups, or 2 of the best lineups outside of the Yankees, to have Germán go through like that and missing bats, 95 with really solid movement. The off-speed pitch looked good today. 6 no-hit innings today against a formidable, kind of declining or questionable bullpen work anyway out of Cleveland, not only in this series but of late. Andrew Miller going on the DL has put them in a bind, taxing their bullpen. But Germán looks solid today. So maybe the Yankees don't take a flyer on him, but it's a guarantee almost if the Yankees or the Red Sox or any of the bigger market teams were to take a flyer on Matt Harvey, I would have to say that he's got to accept a minor league assignment with them. I don't see any circumstance where anybody's going to pick him up and not give him a minor league assignment. So maybe he becomes just an unrestricted free agent.
It's definitely a good possibility that he becomes a free agent. And part of that is because of the contract ramifications of it. So if a team decides, okay, he cleared waivers and they go to sign him, in theory, they could offer him the veteran minimum and get him for basically next to nothing as far as what they'd be paying salary-wise. if a team claims him on waivers, I believe you are basically accepting the contract that he's currently under. So there'd be a significant savings. Yeah, you might get a little bit of a bidding war, and he's probably not going to go for the veteran minimum. But, yeah, if he's a free agent, there might be some suitors out there that kind of bid each other up a little bit, but I still don't see, big money for somebody in Matt Harvey's position right now. And yeah, we'll see if he is open to a minor league assignment with, say, your New York Yankees or Boston, or name your team.
The Yankees are one team that I know for a fact are not going to take him immediately onto the major league roster. There's just no way that happens. He's going to have to put in his time with the Rail Riders, at least 1 or 2 starts, get the bats out of the belfry. It's no mistake. Nobody's ever made any bones about Matt Harvey's affinity for the Yankees, growing up a Yankees fan and wanting to play for the Yankees. As a Yankee fan, we try to leave the homerism at home a little bit, as much as I can anyway. Pardon the Yankees hat. But as a Yankees fan, I wouldn't mind the move because it's a higher ceiling than it is a risk at that point in time.
Well, that's what it's all about. Is potential. Not right now. You're not expecting Matt Harvey to come in and be, even middle of the rotation or even bottom of the rotation starter right now. You put him in a situation where he would go to a team where he'd be willing to, maybe go down to, like you said, Scranton Wilkes-Barre, do a few starts down there, see how it goes, and we'll see what injuries happen and other circumstances that might allow him to come up. Or, he turns it around with the right pitching coaching and becomes a major asset that you could get for nothing later in the year. So October comes around, who knows? Maybe Matt Harvey's figured it out at that point, and he's, one of your top 3 starting pitchers. Is that likely? Probably not, but is it worth taking a chance on it for almost nothing at all, including salary?
Absolutely.
Compensation-wise, maybe giving up nothing if he clears waivers and he's a free agent.
75% of himself. Of his former self. That's really what you'd be gambling on. If he could give you 75% of his. Well, I don't understand Matt Harvey's brain. Maybe it's just dysfunction with the Mets. Maybe it's just run its course and it's a cancerous relationship, which it's really always been a toxic relationship. Maybe it's just run its course and he goes someplace and he absolutely dominates. It could happen. But I don't understand him not accepting that role, where we've seen that role flourish and be such a prominent – you're a superstar in that role. Chad Green is a superstar for a guy that pitches 1 or 2 innings every 3 or 4 days. He's a superstar in New York's eyes. And if you look at the year Chad Green put up last year, it was an historic year in terms of numbers. He just had, the Ks per 9, walks per K. He was just solid as a rock last year, as that fireman guy. Andrew Miller signed an excellent deal to be that guy. And he's a superstar too. He doesn't get left off of all-star rosters.
I agree.
Right? He doesn't get left off of all-star rosters because he doesn't have the save. He doesn't. And who's to say that? Look at John Smoltz. John Smoltz is a prime example of a starter that went to close and still used his 4 pitches. Okay? It can be devastating to have to face a guy in the 9th inning to only coming in to get 3 outs that normally you're going to face in the 1st inning. And how many times did John Smoltz go through the 1st inning of a start? 1, 2, 3. Probably a whole bunch. Right?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. I'm sure those numbers are ridiculous. How many times?
The reason that they try to scale those closers back is because they want them to concentrate on the fastball, curveball, fastball change, something to the effect of. Or with Mariano, it was 1 pitch, a cutter. But a guy that is capable and already has the knowledge, like a John Smoltz, goes to the pen, ends up becoming a closer, absolutely dominates because he's got 4 pitches to use in the 9th against somebody's lineup that's already taxed, right? So Matt Harvey's payday was out there probably with the Mets or with anybody else as a reliever. I just don't understand why you would want to relegate yourself to out of the game instead of taking an assignment like that. Embrace it. Embrace the suck, right? Right? It's the bad time, but if he takes that bad time, next year he can get paid. Still, he doesn't look such like a bad clubhouse guy if he takes it. Because the Mets are going to tank. They've been tanking. 0-6 on this homestand. After an 11-1 start, it's not looking good.
They've hit a major rough stretch here, and a lot of things going wrong this week. DeGrom going on the DL.
Cespedes headed for the DL as well.
The whole Matt Harvey thing. So definitely some turmoil already.
But
there after a great start, after things looked like they were going pretty well with Mickey Callaway coming in there, and you kind of think, oh, maybe he's got this thing turned around, and I think he is doing a good job. I have nothing bad to say really about the managing job that Mickey Callaway is doing, but it just seems like every single year, no matter who the manager is there, all sorts of just odd things happen. And
everybody in the Mets organization
fits right into that whole Mets.
They're all made of glass. That doesn't help. Cespedes is just headed for the DL once every 30 games, it seems. I don't understand it with the Mets. We talked about the strength and conditioning, but, they always just seem to turn up like bad pennies. All these injuries for them. Bad times. They have the pieces. The Mets have the pieces. They have the Confortos, and they have Todd Frazier and Jay Bruce and Cespedes and DeGrom and Harvey, and, well, not Harvey anymore, but I'm so used to saying DeGrom, Harvey, Wheeler, and Syndergaard, right? It just flows off the tongue. But you got Thor. Thor gave up 2 runs today, I believe. Walked 4. Hasn't really been fooling people with that fastball as much as you would like for a guy that's throwing 99.
The good news for the Mets, too, is it sounds like DeGrom's injury is a short-term thing, and they're just being cautious. And right now the plan is for him basically to miss 1 start and then start next weekend. So
that's best case scenario.
Yeah, you never want to see a high-level starting pitcher, one of your aces, go down. And the way that he got hurt, too, swinging a bat, hyperextending his elbow, it looked pretty bad. But.
So if they don't start off 11-1, it looks really, really bad for the Mets right now, right? But they started off 11-1, and they're not in a bad position. And a good thing for the Mets also is that nobody seems to be running away with the division. Washington looks like they're starting to figure it out, and you got to watch out for them. Obviously, they're the clear favorites. Atlanta is an upstart in that division right now, but how long can they sustain with the current core of younger players that they have? Nobody seems to want to run away with the NL East right now. So you can right the ship still, Mickey Callaway. You can right the ship. It's not all for naught at this point in time.
Familia's got to stop blowing saves, too.
It's got to. For the once vaunted 11-1 Mets, things have turned, and it's a shame. I like it when the Mets are successful, so when they come to Yankee Stadium, it's a good series. The Mets can turn it around. Harvey may have been something that was weighing on them. Who knows? But we'll see.
Yeah, it's disappointing an end to that Matt Harvey tenure with the New York Mets ended up. Yeah, I mean, fresh start for both. Both Harvey and the New York Mets organization at this point. And, yeah, it's disappointing as a Mets fan, I'm sure, to see that turn out that way after 2-3 years ago he was one of the best, probably top 2 or 3 starting pitchers in baseball. And yeah, it's disappointing, but move on, and we'll see what happens from here. Maybe that distraction being gone can kind of weigh that take the weight off the shoulders in New York, and they can just move on. And still a phenomenal starting rotation there, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's currently sitting at 17-15, but like we said, lost the last 6 on this homestand. You lose a tight one in the first game to the Braves, 3-2. Then you get blanked twice, 18-0 back-to-back games, 7-0, 11-0. And then you drop 3 to the Rockies this weekend. Not a good look, but like we said, still time to right the ship there. At 17-15, you're still playing above 500 ball, and you definitely have the pieces going forward that can get on hot streaks. Jay Bruce, career streaky player. Todd Frazier's going to give you what he gives you every single year. He's probably going to hit 30 home runs this year, 25 home runs, but he's going to give you 230. It's just the nature of the beast.
Great clubhouse guy too, Todd Frazier.
Absolutely, and he's playing in his hometown. The Mets can right the ship.
One of the other big notes from the National League is Corey Seager going down for the season. Tommy John surgery. So what do the Dodgers do now? Right now they have Chris Taylor moved back to shortstop. They pulled him out of the outfield, and they've got Verdugo. And they've got some guys filling in, and Verdugo probably will be up for the rest of the season now.
You can't send Verdugo down. He's already proven in the first few games up that he can make an impact with his legs, with his defense. I've seen him make a couple good plays, so you can't send Verdugo down. He's ready. Got to keep him up here. You got to see what Chris Taylor gives you.
He's been pretty good the last couple weeks, especially the last week or so. He's hitting a little bit better. He started slow, but he's got some pop to him. He can steal some bases, and he had a very good year, kind of out of the blue last year. And he's hitting leadoff. Even when he was playing outfield, he's been their leadoff hitter all season long. So yeah, he's back at shortstop now.
I mean, we spoke about it. You know, you're going to see what Chris Taylor gives you for a little while, right? How long is that going to go if you're looking to win a World Series in L.A.?
Right.
Probably not a very long.
Do you want to move Taylor back to the outfield and go get a Manny Machado?
Well, so therein lies the segue. Manny Machado is going to be available very soon. The Dodgers, as tradition states, have a rich farm system. They have the pieces to go obtain Manny Machado. It's do the Dodgers think that they're going to have the money available next year to sign Manny Machado? That's what they want. That's what they need to assess. Because any amount of prospects in the game, in your system, are just that. They're prospects. And to gain someone for 10 years in their age, I believe, what's he going to be, 25, Manny?
Yeah, he's 24 right now. I think he's going to be 25.
To gain someone for 10 years in their age 25 season before they even hit their peak, who's already considered to be the best shortstop in the game by a lot of people. There's no amount of prospects in your farm system that doesn't make you go make that trade if you know that you're going to lock him up. If they don't know that they're going to lock him up, I don't think that they pull the trigger for their 1 and 2 guy or their 1 and 5 guy in their system. And plus, I think major league ready talent needs to go back to Baltimore at some point in time, or really on the cusp. They're not looking at the single A guys that the Dodgers have been protecting since they were 13 years old and 14 years old. They're not looking at those guys. They're looking at somebody that's, you know, close to major league ready. Whether that's a Walker Buehler or somebody,
or a Verdugo,
those are the pieces that you're looking at to get a Manny Machado. But there happens to be the best shortstop in the game coming up really, really soon. Got to be soon. The Orioles have to pull that trigger when the market dictates. And right now, you got one of the best teams in the league or in the majors short a shortstop. So the market's about to heat up on Manny Machado, I think.
And that team that is short a shortstop has had a pretty slow start too. So it's not like they're cruising along like Boston is right now, or like the Yankees, where, you know, there's no real reason to go out there and trade a bunch of prospects for in addition to your roster, because everything's going pretty good. You know, it's kind of a well-oiled machine at this point. Whereas the Dodgers, it is early, and they've been doing a bit better as of late. But, you know, do you go out and make a move, you know, within the next month or two to bring a Manny Machado, or, you know, get some help somewhere else on that team?
I see an avenue of help available for a team that needs a shortstop outside of, you know, committing your top prospects to a team for Manny Machado on the attempt that you're going to try to sign him next year. I see maybe like a guy like Troy Tulowitzki comes to mind. That, you know, he's replaceable in Toronto. Aledmus Diaz is doing okay there. You know, Tulowitzki, I think, currently on the DL as per the...
No way. Troy Tulowitzki can't be hurt.
I think...
The Iron Man, Troy Tulowitzki.
Yeah. So, you know, a guy like that, maybe kind of a veteran, not the veteran of many games, but the veteran of many rosters. But a guy like Troy Tulowitzki, who we could buy really low and potentially has an upside, like they did with Chase Utley. You know, that's an avenue of help, and Chris Taylor, you know, remains your primary shortstop, and you get a help like a Tulo. Somebody like that. That's just the first guy that came to mind, but Toronto's about to bow out. Maybe. They're hanging in there somewhere.
Yeah, they're hanging in there.
They are not anywhere near the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles, it's time, it's time. Within the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, it's going to start heating up for the Orioles pieces.
One other quick Dodgers note, too, is, and you mentioned Walker Buehler, and he was a big part of it. 6 of the innings of their no-hitter this week in Mexico. Combined no-hitter for the LA Dodgers. So it's always interesting when you see, a young pitcher like that. And they did it with, I think it was Ross Stripling a year or two ago, where he was like 6, 7 innings deep into a no-hit start. And that pitch count creeps up. And that is such a tough spot for a manager to be in because you have to make the right call. You have to pull those young guys if they're on a pitch count or, you're trying to limit their innings. And they're throwing a no-hitter. But what do you think the fans think of that, even the visiting team?
We're going to go to the bullpen here for a second, and we're going to call in resident tech advisor, Mr. Anthony Z. Donaldson. Mr. Anthony Z. Donaldson is the head of Disruption Nation, one of the heads, and the host of the daily, weekly EC Radio here on Disruption Network. If you guys are into talk radio and funny happenings and shenanigans.
And great guests.
Outstanding information out of great guests covering both local, national type appeal. Tune into EC Radio because I'll tell you, it is the best 3 hours of internet radio. The best. So, without further ado, while we are starting to talk about pitch count.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, hi, gentlemen. Good to see you both.
Hello.
There we go. I'm trying to figure out what's happening over here.
It's all right. Throw yourself up on screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that because they're going to be like, who's the guy talking?
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Right. So pitch
Actually,
count,
pay attention to him.
Pitch count was something we were complaining about earlier. Well, I was. I feel like I'm always. What was it? The old, the one comedian, the Italian comedian, Vic
DiBenedetto, yeah.
He's like, you pitch till your arm falls off.
Yep.
So, Anthony.
And I'm from the old school, and that's my way of thinking as well.
Sure.
You know?
So you had
there was
asked.
Never a pitch count back in the day.
What you had asked was, what happened to throw until your arm falls off?
Right.
And what I said was $30 million contracts. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So they're protecting assets that they got locked up for 10 years, and they don't want to go parade them out there for 120, 140 pitches. That being said, do I think that most of these guys can go out there and do it? Yes.
Yes.
In Domingo Germán's case today, and that's what we had alluded to prior, that's what got us on the topic was Domingo Germán.
Walker Buehler
a couple days ago on a combined no-hitter with the Dodgers. Neither one of them had been stretched out to being a starter completely. Domingo Germán hadn't thrown over 60 pitches, I believe, in his major league career, and not over 80 pitches in his minor league career, or something.
Really?
Some kind of stat like that.
How old is he?
24.
He's durable.
20.
Ride that son bitch.
No, he might be younger than that, Domingo Germán.
The days of Old Hoss Radbourne are long gone.
Old Hoss Radbourne is gone. Old Hoss Radbourne is going to find a way to get into every show this year. I promise you that. But that being said, $30 million contracts is what happened to pitch count. That's why. That's why it's there. But Justin Verlander, if you told me Justin Verlander had a no-hitter after 6, and he had 80, or what did Domingo Germán have today? 83 pitches, 84
Something
pitches?
like that, yeah.
Okay. If that's Justin Verlander, he's got another 50 on the chain for a no-no.
Verlander could maybe even more than that.
140. I would give him 140 before they got really concerned in Houston. 140. If he had a no-no or a perfect game, and he's just working 3-2 count after 3-2 count, and guys are fouling balls off, and he's got 18 Ks, so he's going deep in counts to strike people out. Justin Verlander's going 150, 140.
I agree with you. Yeah.
But we saw that happen with guys like Kerry Wood.
All right, what about Severino? What if Severino is going, if he's got a no-hitter going through 6?
With how many pitches? Severino's got a
same amount of pitches, 83.
Severino's coming out 130. He's coming out. No matter what, he's coming out at 130. But Severino getting deep into a game like that, like he had a complete game no-hitter the other night, or pardon me, a complete game shutout the other night. Severino getting deep into games like that, he's blowing people away, 1-2, 0-2. He doesn't get deep into counts. He throws a lot of strikes. He's also throwing 99 in the ninth. So I don't think that there's a concern with the durability of his arm. He's just a physical specimen. But he's a rookie and he's young and he's probably not going past 130. But I'd give Justin Verlander 140, 150, no problem if he's got a no-hitter. Honestly,
Right.
I do.
Any veteran pitcher should be
But
able
that
to carry
being
that
said,
workload.
Oh, yeah.
Justin Verlander came out early in a game against the Yankees earlier in this week. Okay, so that alludes back to just the analytics of pitch count. I think that the weather dictates a lot. Earlier in the season dictates a lot. If this were September in a pennant chase, Justin Verlander stays in that game against the Yankees the other day. All right. If Justin Verlander had no hits in that game, Justin Verlander stays in that game against the Yankees. But he comes out, I believe, after 8 innings, and then the bullpen coughs it up, and the Yankees win the game. Justin Verlander stays in that game in September, for sure. They got to be cautious right now. It's April. They got to stretch these guys out.
It's May, but
It's May now. I'm sorry. You're right. It feels so early.
it does.
You know,
I know
I
what you
lose
mean.
track.
I know exactly
It
what you
happens.
mean, and I understand
The days
protecting your
blend in.
investment. If anything, I know about protecting.
So that's what it is. Look at a guy like David Price.
right.
$1 million a start if he makes 30 starts. Right. So that's what happened to pitch count, and it's pitch count all the way up through now. It's high. It's Little League. You see in the Little League World Series where we really get unless you got a kid
You're right.
out there playing Little League.
It has changed the game.
You know they have a pitch count all the way from the Little League World Series. You notice it in that. They can only go maybe 80 pitches every 5 days, something like that. It's really micromanaged at the bottom levels of the game. And taxing an arm, a 19-year-old arm that throws 104 or 103 down there in the minor leagues is not something that these organizations do. They stretch them out over time. So it's not necessarily – they don't have them on a pitch count limit. So if the guy's performing and the velo is still there in the 7th inning, 8th inning, the guy's performing in the minor leagues, maybe they keep him in. It might not necessarily be a pitch count concern, but it's definitely an innings limit. And, they have a formula where they'll do, 1/3 above last year or half above last year or double last year. However the organization chooses to manage a guy is that they work their inning load up as the years go on. They'll start out at 100 innings pitched, and then the next year they're 115. And so you see that with guys, the Jabba Rules is the first guy that comes to mind with that. They could ruin guys. So you're not wrong about pitch count changing the game, and you're definitely entitled to your opinion about being frustrated about it. But the money is really what has dictated the change in pitch count.
Yeah, if you're from the old school like me, man, you pitch till the arm falls off.
Yeah, for sure. But
Old Hoss Radborn.
of course, money changes everything when it comes
does.
to that. And your Verlanders, your Scherzer, your Kershaw, those guys are
They better be going.
They're-
I don't care how many pitches you got.
they're workhorses.
Right.
They are
But
workhorses.
but as we've seen already this week,
And they're
with
veteran
Verlander,
workhorses.
Verlander and the Yankees, they're not going to sacrifice that in April
And-
because the Houston Astros are in it for the long haul.
the key point of that is that it was April or 1st of May or whatever it was.
Pardon me, I did it again. What a faux pas!
Look
Twice.
what happens when
Twice.
when it snows until May 1st. We still think it's April here in
It's
Central
true.
New York. But yeah, those guys are veteran workhorses, and this time of year, you let them go deep into games if they're having a good game. But you made the most important point when you said, if it's September, Verlander is finishing that game.
Severino was a base runner away from being taken out of that game. And I had him. Obviously, I had him started, and so complete game shutouts are huge. He had a 50-something point night in Yahoo that day for all you fantasy buffs out there. It was a big game for Severino, and it would have cost him 10 points. Had Chapman Canna would have given the guy that leads our league right now, would have given him a save, a one-pitch save perhaps, which is like so frustrating. But Severino was a base runner away from being taken out of that game. So you're seeing caution in May in the early months from teams, especially the teams that know they're in it for the long haul. They're going to exercise caution with their guys. And it's the investment. And it's also the investment in the entire organization, the entire team. You have north of $200 million or $150 million invested in your roster. And one guy could hold the linchpin for all of that. Like a DeGrom going on the DL, that shoots the Mets in the foot, right? That's not a very good piece to lose. That's
they're being overly cautious with him right now too.
But that's a linchpin to lose out of your. They lost Syndergaard last year with the tear in the chest.
Right.
That's a linchpin when guys lose or when teams lose their ace. So they're going to be overly cautious. I don't blame them. But it's not to say that I don't agree with you about pitch count. I think that some physical specimens out there could probably go 300 pitches if they wanted to. It's obscene. But at the high school level, at the high school level and the levels below that, I think especially as we've spoken about in episodes previous about Tommy John, the old TJ, it's almost like it's encouraged now. It's almost as if it's a first option
right
now in the youth's lives.
Oh, your arm hurts? Well, let's give him Tommy John. He'll be
TJ,
fine.
Yeah, take one out of his leg.
And
put
how
it
much
in his
royalties does Tommy John get to collect every time they
I think that you were on the show the last time that we talked about
right.
Tommy
I
John.
say this all the time. I think I see it every day of my life. Like, Tommy John should get paid, bro.
He should.
That guy should be a gazillionaire by now. Just because his name is mentioned every day on ESPN or Fox Sports.
I hope he trademarked Tommy John surgery.
Right.
I hope he got some kind of copyright on that.
Well, he has his own underwear now, too. Dude.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw that, yeah.
He's got his own underwear.
TJ?
Oh, yeah.
TJU?
Yeah. He's a smart man.
He
knows surgery and he knows underwear.
Wear these comfortable underwear while you recover from arm surgery.
No, they said they want to take a ligament out of my leg and put it in my arm. So I said, sure.
Hilarious. But yeah, Tommy John should get paid every time they mention his name.
I don't disagree with you at all.
You just mentioned his name 15 times today. It'd be like the Michael Buffer thing. Like every time you say, "Let's get ready to rumble,"
you
like
can't.
Michael Buffer
You actually owe Michael Buffer 10 cents right now.
I know
for saying the words "Let's get ready to," because.
But send me an invoice,
bumble.
Mike.
Let's get ready to bumble.
Send me an invoice, Mike. Anyhow, somebody probably will report me.
Tommy John is probably closing in on being the most mentioned Major League Baseball player ever. He's probably closing in on Babe Ruth right now.
Well, if we continue on our current stretch, it'll be Old Hoss Rathborn by the time we're done.
Well, it's good though. You're educating the youth on former players and guys that played in the 1800s
and through every inning available.
Yeah,
like a girls softball pitcher.
Right.
Because it's underarm or whatever. But I'm not discounting anything that girls softball players do because, geez, you ever tried to do that? That's hard. And they throw hard. And they got 3 or 4 different pitches, the rise ball, and they can cut it in on you. It's crazy.
Slider.
Crazy. Yeah. So definitely not discounting them by saying anything about girls softball. But, they go throw every day. You got a pitcher and you got a relief pitcher that comes in when you're up 14-1. Like, you play a doubleheader, she pitches both ends of the doubleheader. It's crazy. It's like the equivalent of bowling 30 games, probably. It is.
Is there a pitch count in women's softball?
I would doubt it because they throw back-to-backs in doubleheaders.
It's actually more natural to throw it underhand anyways. It's less
Exactly.
wear and tear on your rotator cuff.
They probably don't need Tommy John surgery as much.
That's what they say.
What's the percentage of women's softball pitchers that actually had to get Tommy John surgery?
Tommy John. We're getting it up by the hundreds today for him.
Yeah, right.
You're right, though. The percentage is probably a lot lower, given the fact that it's a natural motion. But back-to-back games, they're throwing in doubleheaders. That's nuts. So, Old Hoss Rathborn, he's going to get his mentions, too.
Are you done with me?
Done with you. You can sign off. And
Bye.
now that we're losing our third co-host with the co-most, Anthony Z. Donaldson.
I'm your board op.
Be sure to check out Z's show every day, every weekday, 3 o'clock, 3 to 6, EC Radio here on the D Disruption Network.
Check out all the other content on the website, too, disruptionnetwork.net.
Disruptionnetwork.net.
You can check out old episodes of our show.
Ease Beats and Bizz.
Ease Beats and Bizz, the D-Line, Home Free with Adeline Van Dyke.
Back Talk with Tommy Drama.
New wrestling podcast. I've heard great things about that.
Absolutely.
Check it out, disruptionnetwork.net. And as JP mentioned, EC Radio every Monday through Thursday here on Disruption Network, 3 o'clock, 3 p.m.
3 p.m. Great show. Awesome guests. Very informative, especially if you're local, if you're in the Utica, Syracuse, Binghamton, Cooperstown. If you're in that area and you're looking for the haps on what's going on, definitely tune into EC Radio. Moving on, we're going to get into some standings. Starting in the American League East, we got the Red Sox at 25-9. The Yankees following them up at 24-10.
The Yankees are on fire.
Absolutely
right now.
on fire.
And Boston's still pretty hot too.
15-1.
They're on a 3-game winning streak. Boston now
15-1 with the Yankees in the last 16 games. They've also played in 17 days straight.
You know when the last time the Yankees did that? Won. Well, it was actually before today. Won 14 out of 15 games. The last time they did that was 1998, and we all know what kind of season the New York Yankees had that year. It was one of the best seasons
17,
they've ever had.
I had a very good year.
20 years ago.
So, yeah, I know what happened in 19.
So we got a huge...
I was 17, and we swept the Pods in the World Series.
We got a huge series with the Boston Red Sox.
Courtesy of
New York
Scotty
Yankees
B.
coming up this week.
How about the Yankees' last set of series here? They're 6-1 in their last 7. Their last 7 on the road at Houston.
The opponents they've had in this stretch is crazy.
Defending World Series champions. You go there and drop 1 in a 4-game set. You come home to perhaps a scuffling Cleveland team, but still one of the best teams in the American League, and you sweep them at home. And now you're going into the Red Sox series and then following it up with a decent Oakland team, and then the Nationals coming to town for a 2-game set. So the Yankees are running the gauntlet right now. Not to be outlooked, and we're definitely not trying to be the homerism, but it definitely bears mentioning in the scope of Major League Baseball right now that the team is 15-1 and absolutely mowing people down. I think after today, with the 3 runs that they scored today, there's something in the neighborhood of a 64-run differential in the last 16 games. 64 runs. The pitching has been outstanding. You're getting a lot out of guys like CC Sabathia that you didn't expect, Domingo Germán that you didn't expect with Jordan Montgomery down. So the Yankees are definitely trending up and still haven't caught the Red Sox. The Red Sox are at an insane 735 right now. 25-9. They're 11-4 at home, 14-5 on the road, and still secure. You know, it's a game. It's a game, okay, going into this series. But they're still secure. If they win one game, they're still in first place.
But that shows you, the Yankees.
If they win one game against the Yankees it's
have
a tie
won
for first place.
15 out of 16 games now, and you've still managed to hold on to first place. Tells you how well Boston is playing right now, too. And Chris Sale had another dominant outing today, 12 strikeouts.
Fearful. You got to be fearful of Chris Sale.
They both, Boston and the Yankees, have a day off tomorrow, and then coming into a 3-game series in the Bronx. So this is going to be a fun series. Both teams rested, bullpens rested. I know it's May, like we said, but, man, this is going to be an exciting series for Yankees fans, for Red Sox fans, for fans of baseball.
And we're going to get into that in our 7th-inning stretch. Tonight on our 7th-inning stretch, when we get there, we're going to be discussing baseball's all-time best rivalries, the 7 best rivalries in the history of the sport, in our opinion. Both of us are going to give our list, so stick around for their 7th-inning stretch.
Very good week to do that with this Boston Yankee series coming up.
And
Cardinals and Cubs, I won't say if we have them on our list, but you got to assume that that's on the list.
The Mariners and the Angels have been spirited over the last few years. So ringing up the rear, you got the Rays, which is surprising. The Rays are 2 games under 500. I don't know if I said that the Blue Jays were 19-16, but
the Rays have actually been playing well.
15-17. You got to give an awful lot of credit to the staff down there after the mutiny that they seem to have had from the front office and trading away and releasing guys.
They're 6-4 in the
releasing guys that are currently playing to an above 2 WAR, hitting .330 for the Pirates. Corey Dickerson, 15-17. Pretty respectable for the Rays. You got to expect that's gonna dip down, just given the personnel and the strength of the division, that they haven't really gotten into the teeth of playing the division yet. And the Orioles are just a pathetic 8-26. And I don't even mean to harp. If you're an Orioles fan out there, I pardon the verbiage, pathetic, but it is. It's just been a horrible stretch.
Worst team in the AL.
It's worst team in the majors, perhaps, because I don't think that they have the
Cincinnati might be tied.
In terms of record, they may not have the worst record, but I think in terms of personnel, after Machado's gone, which he's gone. After Machado's gone, you don't have much outside the way of scope. Chris Davis is hit or miss. You know,
mostly miss. Chris Davis is mostly missed these last few years.
The whiff.
I saw a highlight. I don't remember if it was this morning. I was watching some highlights from yesterday's games, but he flipped out yesterday in the dugout and was swinging the bat and breaking bats in the dugout. And
Maybe he should put all that effort into, getting some good cuts down in the cage.
Yeah, that probably would be frustration well served.
Hit some baseballs for your frustrations, Chris Davis. Make connection with baseballs, not water coolers, not bats to the ground, not anything in the dugout, not teammates.
So 5 losses in a row for Baltimore, and
3-16.
Everybody expected.
3-16 on the road. 3-16. You start off with 19 games on the road and 10 games at home. You're already up against it. It's time for them to start selling off pieces. We've made no bones about it. Interesting going into the Central that the 500 Cleveland Indians, sitting at 500, are currently 2 games up on the Twins, who are 13-17. The 500, 17-17 Indians, 13-17 for the Twins, 14-19 for the Tigers, 11-23 and 9-23 for the Royals and White Sox, respectively. You have to assume that gap is going to increase, and I don't see anything out of the Twins that indicates that they're going to pick it up anytime soon.
Actually, they're on a 3-game win streak now.
Still missing some pieces.
Cleveland's
Sanoa's a question.
Lost
when
3 in a row. They're only 2 games back for the Cleveland Indians.
You just look at the personnel. You look at the pedigree between those two teams, and you expect that gap to increase. We talked about the Twins hanging around.
But I think that's more so of a compliment to Cleveland.
For sure. That's what I mean with the pedigree.
Yeah,
that's
but
just,
I think Minnesota, you could still – and they had a disastrous stretch there, 2 weeks or so into the season. They started out okay and then just had an awful stretch there where they lost. I don't know if it was 9 in a row or 9 out of 10 games. But things are kind of – they're kind of getting themselves back up to – a manageable spot in the standings where they could go on a run. So we'll see what happens there, but certainly not exactly where they had hoped to be 30 games into the season, for sure.
No, not at all. Not after the run that they made last year and then adding pieces, Logan Morrison and
Lance Lynn, who has been terrible. He has been awful. He had a little bit better of a start yesterday, but he's...
A little bit of regression out of Barrios. Maybe some trouble on the horizon for Paul Molitor. You could see it happening. I see ultimately the Indians righting the ship. They're 3-7 in their last 10. I see them righting the ship going. You're talking about a team that won 24 straight last year. Mm-hmm. Same group of guys, same manager, same pitching staff. The bullpen is atrocious right now, has been.
Alexi Ogando pitched for them the other day. That's a name I hadn't heard in like 3 or 4 years. I actually had to text Dave. I said, what? Is that Alexi Ogando? I can't believe Alexi Ogando is still a thing. And he kind of gave me the background story on it.
Did he start?
No, they brought him in as a reliever because their bullpen was so depleted from extra innings games and double headers, and the whole bullpen had pitched like the day before, so they had to call him up for one game, and he didn't do too good. He could have done worse, I guess, but it wasn't good.
If you had Alexei Ogando in your office reliever pool, you're a winner this week. Alexei Ogando. Haven't heard that name in a while either. Losing a guy like Andrew Miller, as we've talked about, core type guys. Andrew Miller, even though he doesn't serve as the functional closer, he's a stopper, and that's just as important.
Who they're missing right now is Brian Shaw. He was kind of a staple in that bullpen for years. And I believe he's in, I could be wrong, I think he's in Colorado now. But, that's kind of an unheralded reliever that was just kind of a, beyond the big names, your Andrew Miller and your Cody Allen. He was kind of a stabilizing force in that bullpen. And I wish Dave was logged on because I would definitely like to hear his thoughts on the current state of Cleveland's bullpen and his thoughts on the Brian Shaw move to Colorado. But
so, Dave, when you ultimately watch this on repeat somewhere and you come check us out, which I know you will because you're the man and you're our biggest fan and we love you and we understand your scorn right now and we're trying to be sympathetic. So drop us a comment in the comment section when you ultimately watch this, and I want to see what your thoughts are on how they can right the ship. And really, it looks to me like it's bullpen help. Nobody really hit the ball in this series against Cleveland. There wasn't blowouts either direction. The Yankees have actually been no hit through 3 or 4 innings like 6 or 7 times in the last 20 games. So, it's something that we're kind of used to, this little come from behind. But Dave, drop us a comment. Let us know what you feel about the Indians. But, we're all Indians fans in terms of being baseball fans. We're on board with the Indians' amount of talent and how they're just going to separate themselves.
Yeah,
they're going to separate themselves.
I wouldn't be worried one bit. I'm sure it's frustrating as a fan.
It's May, Dave, and according to me twice today, it's April, so it's early. All right, it's May. Moving on to the AL West, we got the upstart Ohtani Angels, who I think Ohtani pitched today.
Ohtani did pitch today. He pitched pretty well, actually.
Showy Sunday.
He threw 6 shutout innings, and then they brought him in for the 7th inning. He gave up 2 runs, but currently the Angels are up 8-2. So another good showing for Shohei Ohtani today.
Good show for Shohei. The Angels 20-13, currently tied atop the standings with the 21-14 Houston Astros, defending world champs. Fresh off losing 3 of 4 to the Yankees. 5-5 in their last 10. Not what you expect out of the Astros, but you know that they're not going anywhere. The Seattle Mariners, not a surprise to both of us. We knew that they had the pieces. Finally making a good showing in April and getting off to a good start at 19-13. Followed by the Athletics, who are now going to come in to Yankee Stadium after the Red Sox. The Athletics 18-16, followed up by the Rangers at 13-23. Not too much going on with the Rangers. You expect them to be sellers at probably any point in the season with guys like Cole Hamels. You don't expect to see a guy like Adrian Beltre move, but the potential is always there. Just what he means to that franchise, and probably one of his last years. And
it may ultimately be up to him too if he wants to go have a shot at a World Series title. You saw it with Chase Utley. In Philadelphia, he was a lifelong Philadelphia Philly, and he was the type of guy where, at that point before he left Philly, you just couldn't imagine him in any other uniform. And now he's been with the Dodgers for a few years. So it could ultimately be up to Beltre. I'm sure the organization will bring the idea up to him and leave it up to him and say, hey,
there's a couple pieces down there.
Hey, do you want to stay here where you're comfortable and you're established with your family, or do you want to go take another shot here and go to a contender and maybe get a ring?
How many sellers do we really see, right, in Major League Baseball right now? Or not even just Major League Baseball, but in the AL. How many sellers do we really see? Baltimore and Texas? Detroit?
Tampa Bay.
Is going to sell off a couple more pieces, but really don't have, other than Archer. I forgot about Chris Archer. Perhaps maybe Toronto, but Toronto's hanging in there at 19-16, and maybe thinks that if they keep their pieces around, they can have a shot at making a run at the wild card. Because like we have mentioned before, that pitching staff is decent up in Toronto, and they have a good back end of the bullpen. So you might not see Toronto be a seller. You're definitely looking at the Tigers being sellers. Perhaps Miguel Cabrera, another star who's kind of synonymous with a uniform right now, even though he was a Marlin for a little while. You look at him winning the Triple Crown and going to the World Series with Detroit. You look at the Tigers are definitely going to be a seller at some point, maybe not immediately, but not going to hang around. But Texas and Baltimore really are the ones that jump off the page right now. And other than Chris Archer with the Rays, you see a nice little group of young talent there. The Royals aren't selling. Another core group of young guys. The White Sox are on the rebuild, not going to sell.
There's not much there to sell. It's all young talent, pretty much.
Yep.
Unless somebody desperate to take James Shields off their hands.
And perhaps that's a guy, that's an intriguing guy. It's a guy with World Series experience. It's a guy with playoff experience. Big game James Shields. They called him for the longest time. Hasn't had the best track record over the last few years, but as a plug-in guy, as a maybe a long relief guy.
Maybe some bullpen pieces there. Nate Jones, Soria, that could be available at the deadline.
Joakim Soria, a few good years. It never really outstanding closer. Was an outstanding setup man when he first came up. If you recall, he was dominant with the Royals. He's an interesting piece, maybe a seventh inning guy for a contending team. But that's it. That's the American League, man. Kind of how we thought it would be shaping out. There's some surprises. Just in terms of record, being 25-9 and 24-10 is really good for the Yankees right now, and I'm surprised because our last few shows, the Yankees started to get hot around our last show, but 2 weeks prior to that was our show before that, and the Yankees were scuffling. So it's a surprise to see them sitting there at 24-10.
Yeah, they've only lost one game since then.
A surprise even though they're not even in contention. The 15 and 17
How about
Rays.
Gleyber Torres, too, coming up and just fitting right in and being an absolute stud with the bat and in the field. And what
Looks
have they?
great.
They've
Looks
lost,
like he's been playing second base his whole career.
I think this whole stretch of games, has he only had one loss since he's...
One loss. So he's been up for
the kid
16 games.
He hits the
15
game-winning
and
home
1.
run today. He's batting mid-300s.
Had a big hit in the game tonight.
What a start to his major league career. And
Totally agree. So that's the American League in a nutshell right there. Kind of a lot of par for the course, what we expected if you paid attention to our previews, starting to shape up that way. Few surprises. The 13 and 17 Twins jump off the page as a surprise, and the 15 and 17 Rays, for different reasons of being under 500, but being that close to 500, they jump off the page to me as a surprise. Maybe Oakland hanging around there at 18 and 16 is a surprise.
yeah, it's not.
And the fact that Baltimore is as bad as they are, as early as they are, with some of the pieces that they have there, that's a surprise as well. But there's the American League. You want to run down the National League, my man?
National League. So in the NL East, we have since our last show, a new division leader. The Atlanta Braves have gone to the top of the division. They haven't exactly been setting the world on fire in the last few days. They're actually on a 3-game losing streak, but they are a game up on the Philadelphia Phillies. The New York Mets, who had been holding down first place, 6-game losing streak, and right now they're 2 games above 500 after such a good start. We already covered the Mets a little bit to an extent, but yeah, the NL East is quite the entertaining division as far as things just kind of being in flux right now. With the young Atlanta team now sitting on top of the division, Philadelphia has been just kind of chugging along, losing 7 out of their last 10. The Mets struggles, and you know what? Here comes the Washington Nationals.
As we alluded to earlier,
up the standings.
7-3 in their last.
Only 2 games behind the Braves for first.
Clearly the best team in that division, personnel-wise. I don't think that's debatable. They're missing 2 cogs. They're missing Adam Eaton, who, go figure, Adam Eaton and Troy Tulowitzki and D. Ellsbury are all hanging out together.
Wow,
playing
imagine
golf
that.
right now.
They're all
Cespedes is about to go join them. Can we add? I wish that our resident at-home statistician isn't watching right now, and I'm kind of at a loss right now because I want to know the combined days that Troy Tulowitzki, Jacoby Ellsbury, Yoenis Cespedes has spent on the DL.
I want to know how many days they've actually played on the same day.
And Adam Eaton. Throw Adam Eaton in there too. But missing Adam Eaton and Daniel Murphy right now, and looking up at 7-3 in their last 10. The Nationals are going to eventually probably run away or separate themselves from most of this division. But could the Braves be buyers?
They could be. I mean, I don't know if it's going to continue on this way. I mean, like I said, they are on a 3-game losing streak now. They are in first place. But it's certainly not, a ridiculous thought to think of Atlanta buying. And you already saw them sign Jose Bautista. We said that was kind of a odd signing for such a young team. So you already kind of get a hint into what their mindset might be getting closer to the trade deadline when you see him pick up a Jose Bautista. So who knows? They could use another starting pitcher there. They've got some pretty good young ones, though. Sean Newcomb is having a very nice season. A couple of the other kids that they brought up to make their debut this year, a couple other really good young talents there. Julio Teheran, I wouldn't consider him by any means to be ace level, but he is kind of the veteran of that staff, and he's solid pitcher.
Demonstrated to be an ace.
He's a solid pitcher. He's a worthy top 5 starting pitcher. And you add maybe one arm at the deadline, maybe a little bit of help for the bullpen. And
we'll be looking at this year's version of last year's Yankees. A year ahead, maybe 2 years ahead. Interesting story with Atlanta. It's just a question of whether or not they can sustain. But as we said before, nobody's running away with this division. The only clear losers in this division are the Florida Marlins. But the fact that the Florida Marlins have 12 wins is very surprising.
Hey, they're 7-3 in their last 10.
And they're
winning a few games.
They're actually playing really well. They're playing really well. So
they are coming off a Cincinnati series.
How bad can you Joey Votto, Scooter Gennett, Scott Shebler, Potato, Adam Duvall, Raciel Iglesias.
Eugenio Suarez.
How are you this bad? How? The Marlins, who traded off $400 million in payroll, and the likes of Ozuna and Yelich and Stanton, are just destroying you. 8-25. We're going to get to the Central.
Is JT Real Muto next there? Is he the next one to go?
Well, he's got to be. He holds a lot of value. Play multiple positions. He can fill in at first base, but he's a catcher. Who's looking out there that's in contention that needs a catcher, though? I know somebody. And we're going to get to that right now, moving on to the Central after the 12-20 Marlins are bringing up the rear in the East. We got the Cardinals at 19-12 and the Brewers at 20-15 percentage points separating them. The Brewers with the most wins, but the Cardinals with the best percentage.
Cardinals with a 4-game win streak right now, and they play the Cubs tonight in Sunday Night Baseball.
And speaking of teams that currently are in contention that may need a catcher, the St. Louis Cardinals come to mind. What happened today with the St. Louis Cardinals?
I think it was yesterday.
Was it yesterday?
But, Yadi Molina. He's catching this young phenom pitcher that the Cardinals have, a relief pitcher by the name of Jordan Hicks, who's got triple-digit velocity. And Jordan Hicks unleashed a 103-mile-an-hour fastball, and it hit Yadi directly in the groin.
In the pizza deal.
And the trainers checked him out, and they did not like what they saw, and pretty much immediately said, Yadi, you're gonna miss at least a month. And yeah, that was a tough injury to watch, and he's gonna be missing some serious time, and he's gonna be probably not moving around too much. He's gonna be moving pretty gingerly for quite some time here. He will be back. They're saying probably about 4 weeks. But, that's a tough blow to that team. Yadi Molina is probably, if you were to pick one player that is absolutely one of the most vital components a team could have, it's Yadi Molina to the St. Louis Cardinals is high on that list for sure. So that's a tough loss.
How much sense does a guy like JT Realmuto?
Depends on the asking price, of course, but I don't see a team, as long as Yadi will only miss a month, I don't see them pursuing another catcher. Now, maybe if this is worse than it seemed even, which I can't imagine how it could be any worse than what happened to him, but maybe then. But there's a few other teams out there that come to mind, the Washington Nationals possibly, going after a guy like Realmuto. Maybe the Milwaukee Brewers go after Realmuto. So yeah, there's going to be some suitors out there, and we mentioned that the Marlins are 7-3 in their last 10. I want to say Realmuto has been back for about 10 games, and he's been hitting the ball pretty well. So that goes to show. I mean, that's as you mentioned, and as we have mentioned several times on the baseline, that is one of the worst, if not the worst, rosters in the majors.
Without question.
And Realmuto can be an asset and pull in some more young talent there and continue to stockpile and move on with the rebuild. So, yeah, that's another, we mentioned Machado, and he's not obviously on the level of a Manny Machado, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him as we move into the season and teams look to upgrade their rosters. So St. Louis is in first place. You mentioned Milwaukee. They're a game back. The Pittsburgh Pirates are starting to fade a bit. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They kind of started hot. A little bit of a surprise there, too. And we're holding down first place in that division for the first few weeks of the year. But St. Louis has passed them. Milwaukee's passed them. The Cubs are right there, half a game behind them right now, and they're on a 4-game losing streak. The St. Louis Cardinals series right now, the Cardinals have, had a real nice bump in the standings by beating them a few times in a row here. But we know the Chicago Cubs will be there at the end in that division race. They're going to be right up toward the top of that
tough division for the Pirates to compete.
Very tough.
It's just a tough division. Maybe perhaps in the National League you see the Pirates be a seller at some point in time. A few pieces there still. Maybe even a Corey Dickerson who kind of fell into their lap. Could be a piece.
Ivan Nova, maybe.
Ivan. That dude. So frustrating as a Yankee fan to remember Nova. The Reds.
The Reds with their 8 wins in last place.
3-7 in their last 10. The Reds. I went in all on you, buddy. All in and on the Vegas odds.
Can't even blame Brian Price anymore. He's not there.
No, he was out of the baseline already last week. We should just put the whole Reds organization out of the baseline right now. How do you not win with those pieces? How do you not win? Pitching. You think pitching isn't important? Look in Cincy. Definite sellers at the trade deadline. Definite. It's time to blow up everything in Cincinnati. I just don't. You remember our first show, and we went in. We talked so much about who was going to do what and what I thought expectations were for these teams and what you thought expectations were, and I was so opposed to people being down on the Reds. And looks like Vegas was right. They don't make mistakes. Looks like every analyst on TV was right. They don't make mistakes.
Well, the thing that stuck out to me, and you mentioned it already, that's a tough division. That's the first thing that popped out to me when I was looking at trying to figure out where the Reds would slot into the standings. And when you're in a division with St. Louis, Milwaukee, and the Chicago Cubs, and then all of a sudden you get a bit of a surprise Pittsburgh team right now, when you're playing those teams 18 times a year or whatever it is, that is a tough schedule to go through right there. I mean, that's, what, almost half your games against some pretty damn good teams.
So the Reds, 8-25, 242 winning percentage, and currently, we're at, May 6th, 12 games back. And we're not talking about world beaters at 19-12 or 20-15 leading that division, and they're 12 games back. 12 games. Not looking too good if you're a Cincinnati Reds fan out there. Moving over to the NL West. At 23-11 Arizona Diamondbacks. 6-4 in their last 10.
And here come the Colorado Rockies with a 5-game win streak.
We're going to get into the Diamondbacks and Rockies, I think, maybe later. Here they come.
And here come the San Francisco Giants with a 4-game win streak.
4-game winning streak for San Francisco, but winners of the last 5 series that they played in. You lose a guy like Johnny Cueto, you expect to slip up a little bit, and they've righted the ship and continue to trudge on. You got guys hitting now. The experiment might work. Maybe those veterans are going to start to get hot. Longo is
some Bruce Bochy magic there again.
Longo is heated up a little bit, due to get maybe 1 or 2 pieces back in that rotation, but Cueto's a big loss. Is there word on Cueto on whether or not he has to have TJ?
I haven't heard any definite word. So I'm not sure what
call it Tommy John anymore. We're going to go over our allotment of Tommy John mentions on our show. We're going to call it TJ.
I didn't think it was that serious, but
no, it's serious. Tommy John gets pissed.
No, I'm talking about Cueto, but yeah, I'm sure Tommy John does good. At least he's got some nice, comfortable undies to wear, though. I don't know how serious the Cueto injury is, but there's been many times something seems not too serious, and then a few days go by, and it's like, oh, so-and-so's having Tommy John surgery. So I hope not. I don't want to
taking it out of his leg, Sean. Out of his leg. The Arizona Diamondbacks, a surprise at 23-11. Not really a surprise. We both had them up there, but didn't expect the Dodgers to not be sitting on top of the division, let alone 4th at this juncture in the season. You talk about a tough division. We said it from the get-go this year, and at least it was my opinion. The AL East is always going to be formidable, but the NL West, to me, coming into the season, was the toughest division in baseball. And still, with the Dodgers and the caliber of team that they have sitting at 15-18, 15-18 doesn't scare me for the Dodgers. With the Dodgers sitting in 4th and the 3 teams above them having a pretty decent start to the season, it proves so far that the NL West is the toughest division in baseball. A lot of solid starters in that league and a cavalcade of NL All-Stars. Paul Goldschmidt out there in Arizona not off to the best start so far.
But
for
you know
Paul
who is
Goldschmidt.
off to a good start is A.J. Pollock.
A.J. Pollock is absolutely tearing it up. Patrick Corbin has been one of the more valuable pitchers or point getters in fantasy baseball so far off to the season. Guys like Robbie Ray, Archie Bradley, Brad Boxberger off. We're going to get to league leaders in a second, but I'm sure Brad Boxberger is up there amongst the save leaders in the NL. Really good look for the Arizona Diamondbacks at this point in time to be off to such a good start. But right on their heels is that Colorado Rockies lineup. And that's what you look at the lineup is the Colorado Rockies, not necessarily the pitching staff. But good in the back end of the bullpen, and they are going to find a way to score runs. So they're going to be a tough out in that division. The Giants, like we said, winning five of the last their last 5 series, 4-game winning streak. Maybe the best manager in Major League Baseball, one of. 3 world titles under his belt. And the Padres at 12-22. Probably not the start that the Padres were looking for, especially with a guy like Lucchesi off to a pretty decent start. And you sign Eric Hosmer in the offseason, which still, it's a temple scratcher for me. Don't understand the move there. You got Will Myers on the DL. Not the start that the Padres were hoping for at 12-22, I'm sure. But the position in the division where everybody expected them to be. Just didn't think that they would be that out of it, 11 games out this early in the season. And that is the Major League Baseball rundown. And who was that brought to us by?
That standings update was brought to you by Steet Ponte Volkswagen. Stop down to their showroom at 5046 Commercial Drive in Yorkville, New York. See why it's easy to do business with Steet Ponte Volkswagen. SteetPonteVolkswagen.net. So what's next? Are we gonna do
go on some league leaders?
Let's run down a couple of the league leaders.
See who jumps off the page at us. We're getting deeper into the season, SPG, so it's easier for us.
More beef to
these numbers, and now they're more justifiable to go over them, and they're impressive. And I'm pulling up the 2017 league leaders. We don't want that. I just looked at Giancarlo Stanton on the home run leaders board, and I was like, nope.
That can't be right.
52. That's good, right?
That's good, right? So the American League batting average leader right now is Mookie Betts at 355, and wow, what a year he is having! Like
3 home runs in a game. We had 2 guys go deep.
We actually had three guys.
Who was the third?
Pollock had a 3.
Oh, I forgot Pollock had one. That's right. So was that on the same day?
I think Encarnacion.
Those two were definitely on the same day.
Encarnacion was the third one, and then Betts. Yep. But what a year he is having right now.
355.
355, leading the majors in home runs right now with 13.
Jed Lowry at 353. Andrelton Simmons off to a really good start, cementing himself in at least he was in my top 7 shortstops in the game. I don't think he was in yours.
He wasn't.
Maybe an oversight.
He's now past Manny Machado for, I believe, the best batting average for AL shortstops.
Hey, I'll take my shortstop any day of the week for this season. The April AL Player of the Month, Mr. Marickson Julius D.D. Gregorius,
Sir Didi.
Sir Didi, my boy. Right now, I love him. I just love where his game's at. But, Manny Machado and Andrelton Simmons off to really hot starts as well. You expect Manny Machado to be moved someplace, and that could only spike his numbers. You could see Manny Machado at some point in time. If you put the right kind of lineup around him, you're talking about Manny Machado as the next Miguel Cabrera type that could go and challenge for a Triple Crown. Manny Machado. Manny Machado hitting 346 right now. J.D. Martinez also with Boston. Big signing this offseason, making the adjustment just fine to Beantown at 349 in this early season. Over in the NL, we got Nick Markakis. Going to get another mention on this show. I picked him up this week in the fantasy. He's playing to something like a 1.7 WAR so far. That veteran guy. If you look down the career leaders in active hits, all right, Nick Markakis has 2,000 hits. Nick Markakis, almost 2,100. He's got 2,097 hits in his age 34 year. You're looking at Nick Markakis. If he can put together a few more peaceable years here, you're looking at Nick Markakis challenging 3,000 hits. Surprised the hell out of me today when I was looking up only for Ichiro. We were going to talk about Ichiro and we were going to talk about Albert Pujols, and I wanted to examine that all-time players list, or not all time, but the current players. 2,097 hits. Good for 7th in the game right now. 2,097. So Nick Markakis maybe just got lost in the shuffle for all those years in Baltimore.
Yeah, you and I actually had a text exchange about Nick Markakis a few days ago. I think it was when you picked him up. And we were both in agreement that is a guy that is just completely flown under the radar like his whole entire career. Because he doesn't really put up eye-popping numbers in any category. This year is the exception, obviously. His batting average and some of the numbers he's putting up so far this year are admittedly eye-popping. But if you look at his entire body of work, individual seasons, you're not going to see your 30, 40 home run years or a 340 batting average or 100 RBIs consistently every year. But he's like one of those lunch pail, hard-working guys who is just really good at being a solid player in a lineup. And he's somebody who barely strikes out. He gets on base. He walks. He does a lot of the little things you need to do to be a good ball player. And those little things often get overlooked in this day and age of home runs and other flashy things that kind of get the highlights, the attention for highlights. But yeah, it's crazy that he's got 2,100 hits almost, and I don't even think of him. You
should have seen the look on your face and your face when I just said that. How surprising! You said what?
I was very surprised.
2,097 hits for Nick Markakis, who is currently on my team and sitting number 1 in the NL. Amongst qualified hitters at 344.
I think you're going to hear his name when we get to the fantasy baseball segment later as well.
Outstanding. Asdrubal Cabrera with the New York Mets, the abysmal New York Mets at this point in time at 333. Odubel Herrera, who is on the strength of, I believe, a 19 or 18 game on-base streak, and only one of those games was a game with a walk and no hit. 333. Tommy Pham, the solid young outfielder from the St. Louis Cardinals at 327. And Nolan Arenado. 315. He's really good.
Tommy Pham, the guy that I don't know if you saw any of the buzz in spring training, because Tommy Pham had an awful spring training. He batted 100 over the course of the majority of March. And all of a sudden, all these rumors are that Tommy Pham can't see. He's got vision problems all of a sudden. He's not looking too good, and then comes out, regular season starts, and here he is batting 327. So, obviously, there was no truth to that any kind of vision issues he was having would have any negative impact on his ability to see the ball, because he's seeing the ball just fine. So, yeah, then Nolan Arenado there with 315, always up there.
Always solid.
Speaking of always solid, NL home run leaders, Bryce Harper with 12.
Go figure.
Charlie Blackmon with 11.
Oh, you don't say.
A.J. Pollock, who we mentioned,
that's a surprise.
10. Ozzie Albies with
your
10.
Your boy Ozzie Albies.
Here's another surprise. Christian Villanueva of the San Diego Padres.
Early candidate for Rookie of the Year in the NL. Christian Villanueva, the only Mexican native on that San Diego, or on both rosters that played in Mexico. So I'm sure playing down there in Mexico was a really big deal for Christian Villanueva.
Yeah, it was probably similar to what we saw with Francisco Lindor, the Puerto Rican guys that played in that series between the Cleveland Indians and the Minnesota Twins a couple weeks ago. Let's see. AL runs batted in. Speaking of surprises.
Did we mention him at 353 already?
Speaking of surprises, I know we kind of did this last week, but raise your hand if you called Jed Lowry and Didi Gregorius leading the AL in RBI on May 6th, because that would have been impossible to predict. And Jed Lowry continues to crush it.
353.
Didi's doing great, too.
31 RBIs.
Didi's got 30 right there.
Didi's been scuffling the last couple games. He needed a day off. That's what he needed. He got kicked in the head. Francisco Lindor kicked him in the head. He needed a day off. He's going to right the ship. Nobody expected Didi to play to a 357 and 420 on base and on pace for 35 homers and 110 RBIs. It's not, but 310, 25 homers, 85 RBIs, 100 runs scored. You get those numbers out of Didi Gregorius, and it makes him amongst the best shortstops in the league, period. And Mitch Haniger hanging out there with Seattle with 10 as well. Or, I'm sorry, we're on to RBI.
K-Ris Davis is third with 29. K-Ris meaning Chris Davis from Oakland as opposed to Chris Davis from the Baltimore Orioles.
They both
who
strike out.
Smashed his bat the other day.
They both strike out.
Oh, yeah, they both strike out quite a bit.
But Chris Davis.
Oakland, Chris Davis.
Chris Davis is better than Chris Davis.
Still
in my
a
opinion.
productive Major League Baseball player. Chris Davis is definitely better than Chris Davis.
I mean, I'm just going by the numbers. Chris Davis has put up a few really, really good years back-to-back here, and Chris Davis has just had some awful years back-to-back here. So Chris Davis is better than Chris
Davis.
Gary Sanchez sitting there at 28 runs batted in, and J.D. Martinez again finding himself on a leaderboard in the AL at 27. NL runs batted in, the upstart A.J. Pollock, the offensive juggernaut that is A.J. Pollock with 29 RBIs. Bryce Harper, steady ship that is Bryce Harper right now at 28 RBIs. Javi Baez, a surprise.
He's having a really nice year, too.
28 RBIs with Chicago. Yoenis Cespedes. Yoenis, I am on the way to the DL. Cespedes, 26 RBIs.
Michael Franco with
Michael
26
Franco
is a
with
surprise
26.
to me. I was surprised to see him on the leaderboard there. So that's the roundup for hitters' stats.
Your
traditional
AL
hitters'
wins
stats.
leader, Corey Kluber with Cleveland in 5. Luis Severino off the strength of a complete game shutout against the defending world champion Houston Astros at Houston with 5. Rick Porcello with 5. Justin Verlander with 4. And Sean Manaea, Z's boy, he's bringing up the rear with 4 on our leaderboard. The NL wins leader. You don't even need to look at it for me to tell you who the NL wins leader is, do you? It's Max Scherzer, ladies and gentlemen. The suspense is gone. It's Max Scherzer at the top of the NL wins leaderboard, where he finds himself quite often. The Washington bullpen coffin went up for him today. So he could have been at 7. Patrick Corbin.
Washington ended up winning that game anyways, but yeah, he was in line for a win.
I watched the Angels bullpen deconstruct last night. And today the Nationals. How has it been 3 years that we've been talking about both of those bullpen situations?
Pretty much,
2 years. You would think that two teams that in all sense of the word compete every single year want to be up near the top of their divisions. They don't give up.
I saw you picked up
really good to Cam Bedrosian.
I saw you picked up Cam Bedrosian the other day,
and they bring him in 1 1/3 innings. He pitches 3 strikeouts. They take him out.
And I think it was just last week you were saying, like, never again will I own an Angels related. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, he got sucked back into it because that's what happens.
The opportunity presented
gives
itself
you a
with
glimmer of hope, and then
or
you know, it's like, why did I do that? It's the same thing every time.
It is, but we've been talking about the Nationals bullpen and the Angels bullpen for what seems like years now. You would think that two teams that want to compete all the time and be up near the top of those standings would go out and sure up that 9th inning, and they haven't.
Texas is another one. I know Keone Keela's having a decent year, but that's another team that is.
I don't look at Texas being a contender.
Not this year, but I'm saying
but
as
you're
far as
right.
in
Traditionally,
recent years go, they're another team.
They've struggled through
always
Sam
has
Dyson. They've struggled through
bullpen situation. There.
They've struggled through a lot of things. Neftali Feliz, unfortunately, getting hurt really put a damper in their plans, because I think Neftali Feliz was on everybody's radar at one point in time, because he was one of the original new crop of the 100-mile-an-hour throwers, and then he got hurt. But Neftali Feliz probably hurt them a little bit in their plans. Patrick Corbin with Central New York roots, Cicero North Syracuse grad, Mohawk Valley Community College, former player at Princeton on the Parkway, which is about a driver and a pitching wedge away from Studio D in Utica, New York.
It's about an Aaron Judge home run from here.
About an Aaron Judge home run is where Patrick Corbin played college ball. Aaron Nola with 4, Chad Bettis with Colorado, off to a pretty good start with 4, and Trevor Williams with Pittsburgh off to a good start with 4 as well. Your AL ERA leader, go figure, Justin Verlander's at the top of this list, 1.17, outstanding.
2 Houston guys at the top.
Garrett Cole finding it with Houston 1.42. Sean Manaea on the strength of a no-no at 1.63. Chris Sale, 2.02 and only getting better. And Luis Severino, speaking of only getting better, 2.11 off the strength of his career best start, that complete game shutout against and at the World Series champion Houston Astros. I can't even say it enough times. He's developed himself into an ace, a must-see pitcher. Whereas for the last 4 or 5 years, Kershaw was must-see TV for me. And I have said that. I've been on record as saying that. As much as I hate the Dodgers, Kershaw is was must-see TV for me. Severino is must-see TV. You cannot miss a Severino start. The kid is electric. Really, really, really looking forward to Tuesday and what he brings to the mound against Boston. Really looking forward. But sitting at a 2.11 right now on the strength of that complete game shutout. Jarlin Garcia. If you had Jarlin Harlan Garcia in your NL ERA leader office pool this week, you're a winner. 1.09. Ridiculous. What's he giving up? 1 run this year? Ridiculous. 1.09. Carlos Martinez with the St. Louis Cardinals at 1.40. The aforementioned Max Scherzer with the Washington Nationals at 1.74. Jacob deGrom currently on his way to the DL but only scheduled to miss 1 start. He's at the 1.87 on a Chad Bettis with Colorado. Having an awesome year.
Chad Bettis is a cool story, too. He's a cancer survivor. Had cancer last year, successfully treated it, returned at the very end of the year, and I remember seeing, watching, I don't know if it was highlights or if I was watching the actual game when he returned to the mound there, but super emotional moment, and it's good to see Chad Bettis is having some success this year. Very cool story there.
Well, he's on every leaderboard we read off so far for NL pitchers, so he's having a really good year, especially in a place like Colorado. Good to see that. Edwin Diaz off to the early lead in the AL with 13 saves. Roberto Ozuna, Craig Kimbrell with 9, Kelly Herrera, and Aroldis Chapman with 7 each. Wade Davis with 13 for the Colorado Rockies. Arizona's Brad Boxberger with 11. Brad Hand out there saving probably almost every win for the San Diego Padres with 9. Juris Familia, the same situation with the Mets with 9. Hunter Strickland with 8 in San Francisco taking over for the injured Mark Melancon. Your AL wins above replacement winner. Wins above replacement leader. Winner, listen to me. I got to stop. Maybe more from our current sponsor in a minute. Mike Trout is at the top.
No surprise.
Of AL war. Mookie Betts is second. Jose Ramirez is third.
And if you
no
look at
surprise
Trout and Betts
top 3
at 2.9 and 2.6 respectively, they're miles ahead of anybody else. AL and NL.
3 wins. 3 wins in this early season. Mike Trout is responsible for 3 wins above a replacement. Mookie Betts almost 3. 2.9, 2.6, and 2.1 for Jose Ramirez. Kevin Pillar playing to above a 2 WAR, and Jed Lowry, who we mentioned before, off to a really solid start. But Kevin Pillar, we didn't find him on any of these leaderboards that we just read off here, but he's playing to a 2 WAR. Nick Markakis, who we already spent a little bit of time talking about, Nick Markakis, is your NL wins above replacement leader at 1.8, tied with teammate Freddie Freeman, 1.8. A.J. Pollock off to an outstanding start with the Arizona Diamondbacks, 1.7. Eugenio Suarez, he's played to 1.5 wins above replacement for the Cincinnati Reds. Yet the Cincinnati Reds
they have 8 wins.
So
without him, they'd have
Brian
six
Kenny,
and a half wins.
Brian Kenny, if you're out there listening, because you're the statistician, sabermetrics guru, explain to me how somebody on a team can play to 1.5 wins above replacement on an 8-win team. Take your sabermetrics and never mind. I'm only fooling. WAR is something that I actually believe in. I think it's all the things that they add into it are worthy of compiling the best player in the league. I think it's an accurate barometer, or as accurate as we have. And so I'm happy to give you the WAR stats. But Eugenio Suarez, replace him with anybody, they still got 8 friggin' wins. 8 wins. You can replace them with Brooks friggin' Robinson, and they're going to have 8 wins. So, whatever. What does that stat mean when you're 8-25 with that lineup? Cincinnati Reds, you guys are out of the baseline for the entire year if you don't win more than this current pace. 1.5 wins above replacement for Cincinnati's Eugenio Suarez and Brandon Belt, having a typical Brandon Belt May and April. 1.5 wins above replacement. Your league leaders were brought to you by...
League Leaders brought to you by Priceless Inspections. A good quality home inspection is priceless. Call Josh Amodio at 315-525-8725 for your next home inspection. In-depth and detailed reports, thorough inspections, and he pays attention to details. Josh has been in the construction business his whole life, and he knows the importance of a quality home inspection. Call Josh before you put your home on the market if you're looking to buy a home or if you just want to update your home. Josh can do all that for you. Call him today at 315-525-8725. That's Priceless Inspections at 315-525-8725.
Does good work, that Josh, huh?
He does great work, man. He's a buddy of mine, and I've done business with him, and certainly was very, very impressed. The detailed reports and all that gets mentioned in that ad, completely true. And he had a report to me within 2 hours with a whole bunch of pictures. He really does go above and beyond. So definitely get a hold of Priceless Inspections. Josh will take care of you.
We are going to get into something right now for all you fantasy lovers out there, and we're going to get into a segment that we like to call 3 Up and 3 Down, where our resident fantasy expert, SPG, Sean Patrick Gaffney, goes over his 3 players to go towards and 3 players to stay away from, the trends in fantasy baseball. And take it away, SPG, for 3 Up, 3 Down.
All right, 3 Up, 3 Down. So this week, 3 Up. I got A.J. Pollock as one of them, and we mentioned him a few times on the early part of the show, going through the standings and through some leaderboards and stuff. But A.J. Pollock is having an MVP caliber season, and Arizona in general is just having a very good start to the season, and he is certainly a key part of that. Goldschmidt is off to a decent start, but not a good start by Goldschmidt standards. And A.J. Pollock really right now is the best hitter for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's leading the majors in slugging percentage at .653. He's got 10 homers, 27 RBI, OPS over 1,000. And he's a player that has had some injury struggles too. You know, he had the freak accident with the elbow a couple of years ago. Last year he struggled with a couple injuries. But if you go back to 2015, before that, the year before that, he had that elbow injury in spring training. I mean, he was somebody that was an all-star player, 2020 guy, actually a 20, almost 40 guy, and was, one of the best players in the league before that. And then his career kind of gets derailed a little bit by injury, but he's still only 30 years old, and he's off to such a good start. So A.J. Pollock right now is somebody you can realistically mention in the MVP conversation.
For sure.
And, he's having a very good start to the season.
A.J. Pollock, 1 down or 1 up.
1 up. So 2 up. We got Nomar Mazara of the Texas Rangers.
Go figure. You're going to have somebody that's on one of your rosters. Go figure. But
Nomar Mazara.
You get to get a look at him, so you watch the numbers. So
that's the thing. A lot of
but
times,
he's also raking, so
you will see a 3 up or even 3 down.
You're well justified in your pick.
I've thrown a lot of 3 downs at our players that I've had on my roster.
For sure. I'm not calling you a homer.
Got sick and cut.
I'm not calling the shot.
But
a homer
that's
at all.
exactly why, though, is because I do pay extra close attention to a lot of the guys that I might have on my roster. So
but you're justified in picking Nomar Mazara, and tell us why you're picking Nomar Mazara.
So Nomar Mazara right now, I don't know, I didn't see what he did today, but he had, I think, a 3 or 4 game streak of hitting home runs. He's up to 7 homers. It seems like he's been around for a long time already, but he's only 23 years old. He was another guy that came up when he was extremely young, held his own when he was a rookie, 20 homers. 266 batting average, and then last year again in his second year, another 20 home run year. This time he went up to 101 RBI, 253 average. The average slipped a little bit, but he's such a young player that there's some development ahead of him, and maybe we're starting to see that this season. He's batting .285, an .828 OPS, 7 homers, 23 RBI, and this is on a very poor Texas Rangers team right now too. So he's putting up some good numbers on a mediocre to poor roster, and this could be the beginning of seeing Nomar Mazara turn into an all-star caliber player. So he's my 2 up. My 3 up, you're going to like this one, JP. Nick Markakis.
Nick Markakis.
Your buddy
2,097 hits, Markakis.
Your buddy Nick. And he's up over 1,000 OPS right now. We mentioned he's leading the league in batting average, also leading in hits. Great year. And you look at his career stats, and like I said, you don't see eye-popping numbers. But the body of work is there, and he's a guy that, blue-collar guy that just does his job.
Didn't we say that the other night, that Nick Markakis is that guy?
He's a lunch pail guy.
He's a lunch pail and hard hat guy. He's one of those guys that and so lost in the shuffle. I got Nick Markakis' numbers in front of me right now. From 2006 on through, just batting average, on base percentage, 291, 351, 300, 362, 306, 406, 293, 347, 297, 370. Home run numbers in RBI, 16 and 62, 23 and 112, 20 and 87, 18 and 101, 12 and 60, 15 and 73. That's a core guy right there.
Right.
That's not an all-star,
the numbers aren't eye-popping.
Never been an all-star.
And on Baseball Reference, it gives you like a little awards column.
Yeah, so never been an all-star. Rookie of the year, he was 6th in the voting, but he's got 2 Gold Gloves.
Yep.
Is that where you're getting at?
Yeah.
The 2 Gold Gloves?
That's it for his award accomplishments. 6th in Rookie of the Year.
He's got 2 Gold Gloves.
Gold Gloves.
And he's got seasons that read 300, 23 and 112, 18 stolen bases and 97 runs scored. That's 2007 with the Orioles. All right. I granted it's a long time ago. 99 walks in 2008 to go along with 20 homers, 87 RBIs, and a 306 batting average, 406 on base. That's solid numbers. Those are solid numbers.
But here's where you really see Nick Markakis' value is when you go down his walks.
He doesn't strike
and
out.
His strikeouts.
He doesn't strike out.
And he's a career 289 hitter. So he's got a good batting average.
2008, just to put it into perspective, he struck out 113 times. It's not a great ratio of strikeouts in it's 710.
That was his career high in one season.
So 113 strikeouts, but he walked 99 times. He walked 90 times. He's a plus 14 differential between strikeouts and walks. All right? Plus 14. For a guy in that year, he hit 306, on base 406, 48 doubles, a triple, 106 runs scored. He's not even mentioned in the MVP voting for this year. Who won the MVP in 2008? Who finished 10th? Because I believe that Baseball Reference goes down to 10th place votes, right? In the awards column, it'll say, or 10th place finish, it'll say MVP-9 or something to the effect of. Any statisticians out there that like Baseball Reference, feel free to chime in. 2008, Nick Markakis, 306, 2087, 99 walks, a 406 on-base percentage, and he doesn't even click the top 10 in the MVP voting. But those are solid years for Nick Markakis. Solid years. You're not looking at a year. What are his 162 game averages for Nick Markakis?
Let's see what we
289, 359 on base, 15 homers, 78 RBIs, 182 hits.
68 walks, 94 strikeouts.
85 runs scored.
So he's had...
there's no big injury years. Well, there is one, 2012. Looks like an injury year with 104
He's
games.
had 148 plate appearances so far this season, and he has struck out 12 times.
You can't beat that. That's the type of guy we talked about.
Less than 1 out of every 10.
That's also the type of guy that, with that young core, that's the guy you want to have around. You want to have a Nick Markakis around. But, I mean, we might be surprising listeners. We're definitely surprising the 3 people sitting at this panel. Going over these numbers, I didn't ever realize that Nick Markakis was that productive. Ever. I just looked at him as one of those Brett Gardner type guys. Brett Gardner does not have those numbers. Not in his career, not ever in his career did Brett Gardner have those numbers. Not like that. So You look at a guy. That's just the way I looked at Nick Markakis. Was a guy that hung on. He had value on a major league roster. He managed to start, but that's not the case. 2,100 hits for Nick Markakis, and he's really in his age 34 year. He's staring 3,000 in the face.
I knew you were going to like that pick.
Sorry to tangent talk off of that 3 up, 3 down. So, who else you got?
No, I don't blame you, though, because it's a funny topic to talk about because it's just, like you said, you just kind of see him as a spare part almost, but he's got 2,100 hits over the course of his career. So that's the 3 up. 3 down, I got young pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, Luke Weaver, who I had very high expectations for coming into the season, and as did a lot of people, including the St. Louis Cardinals organization. And he's off to a pretty rough start with a 5.6 ERA right now, a WHIP over 1.4. He's not striking out as many guys per 9 as he did last year. So, yeah, he's got a bit of work to do to meet expectations this season. Very good young pitcher, so he'll turn it around. But, yeah, right now it's not looking so good for Luke Weaver in the St. Louis Cardinals. Another good young player whose team is not looking so good right now, outfielder for the Mets, Michael Conforto, is just ice cold right now.
He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat.
He is ice cold. He's lost a lot of playing time when they face a left-handed pitcher.
Not what you expected. That was not nearly.
That wasn't the plan. That definitely was not the plan. But right now he's batting 187. Just has the 1 home run, which I believe he hit in his first game of the season when he came back. He was injured for the first couple of weeks. Comes back, hits a home run. At this point, the Mets are on this ridiculous start.
11-1 New York Mets.
All sorts of optimism, and that's.
Oh, we heard all about the optimism. If you're a local anyway, and you got Mets ties or Mets fans ties, we heard all about the optimism that the Mets fans had. And that's not to discount their start. It's a great start, 11-1, and they're still above 500 and still well in the mix in the national.
They're right there in that.
It's I'm just poking a little fun at the Mets fans and their 11-1 start. Sorry.
So Conforto's, he is part of that recent cold streak for sure, because that's a young hitter that they're planning on relying on. He's supposed to be a cornerstone for that team, but here he is sitting at 187 average, and he's getting on base at a decent amount, 347, but his slugging percentage is 267. So he's ice cold right now, losing playing time, and he's going to have to turn it around pretty quick. And
Michael Conforto, didn't expect that.
Earn Callaway's trust back and see what happens going forward. But, yeah, Michael Conforto's trending down for sure. Another good young player for a National League team that's trending down and has been ice cold. Another guy who hit a home run in his first game of the season, Ian Happ of the Chicago Cubs. And
the first home run of the Major League Baseball season. And not only in his team.
A lot of the things I said about Conforto could be said about Ian Happ. He had very high expectations coming into the year. He had a pretty good spring training from what I remember. Supposed to be, I think they were planning on hitting him leadoff this year. And I think that's what they started out doing, was having Ian Happ at the leadoff spot and hit a home run. I think it was the first home run of the Major League season. I remember seeing that. Like, we have the first home run of the 2018 Major League season. Ian Happ with the leadoff homer.
It was about 10 minutes into the season.
Yeah,
we had Ian Happ on the leaderboard.
1:10 p.m. on opening day. And he's ice cold right now. His numbers aren't as dreadful as Conforto's right now, but
Sub-zero.
Happ actually had like a good first week or so of the season, couple weeks. So Conforto was out, came back, and just pretty much struggled right off the bat. Happ played good for a couple weeks and has pretty much struggled since. So he's got a 240 batting average right now. He's only got 7 RBI, only 7 runs scored, 3 home runs, only 2 stolen bases. And with Javi Baez just on fire too right now and having a phenomenal start to his season, you might see Happ lose some more playing time there, and he's certainly trending downward. Very good, young, talented player, but yeah, he's another one that's got some work to do. So that's 3 up, 3 down.
3 up, 3 down.
That's brought to you by Nick Pasalacqua and Associates. For legal help quick, you better call Nick. Call attorney Nick Pasalacqua and the team at Pasalacqua and Associates. 315-500-NICK. 315-500-NICK. Check out his website at cnytriallaw.com.
The seventh inning stretch.
I like that. Got some good pipes there, JP.
Thanks, buddy.
I did a little bit too much singing last night, so
I know that you did.
my voice is a little raspy today. I wouldn't be able to pull off those sweet vocals, so I
For
appreciate
anybody,
you stepping up.
anybody in the Utica, New York, Syracuse, New York, Albany, New York area, if you're looking for a band to go and check out, go check out the Crazy Fools. If you see the Crazy Fools playing at a local bar, local watering hole, perhaps it's at the beaches, perhaps it's at Saranac.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
August 16th.
August 16th. Saranac Thursdays.
The Saranac Brewery.
Utica, New York, Saranac Brewery, one of the sponsors of Disruption Networks, current sponsor of this show. Thank you, Utica Club. We love you. If you can go check out the Crazy Fools, you are in for a wonderful time.
Yeah, come on down, man. We have fun, you know. We keep it lighthearted, and we just like to enjoy ourselves.
I'll tell you that your baritone voice comes through more so on this speaker system.
I'm a bass
and
player,
through.
so what do you expect? I got to
Right.
have that
It
baritone.
comes through more so than when you walk through the door today. I was like, this kid's not going to be able to do a show for an hour. You couldn't even talk. Did you drink like tea with honey and lemon
I did
in the
it.
back?
Just a couple of Utica clubs, and that helped out considerably.
So like I said, tea with honey and lemon. It's just the nectar of the gods. If you are out there somewhere coast to coast and not of the Utica, New York area, and you have an opportunity to have a Utica club, the nectar of the gods. It is the first beer served after Prohibition in America, and it has been a staple in this town ever since. So if you can have a Utica club and it's natural carbonation, and you can go check out a Crazy Fool show, and perhaps they'll play the Utica Club Bubbles, Bubbles, Bubbles song,
We've done it before.
you've just found yourself two Utica gems, the Crazy Fools and my boy SPG.
Good combo.
Anyway, the seventh inning stretch, we thought it would be fun to go over some of the best rivalries all time in the game, given the fact that the Yankees are going to be playing the Red Sox this week and the Cardinals just played the Cubs and some of the other ones that we've mentioned. We thought it would be fun to list our 7 best rivalries. And we're going to get into our seventh inning stretch right now. At number 7, I got the Mets and the Phillies.
NL East rivalry right there.
NL East rivalry. Heated and contested. The Mets and the Phillies. How many games have we seen come down to the wire? How many brawls have we seen? How many playoff runs have we seen between the Mets and the Phillies over the course of the last our lives anyway? I'm born in 1980. I'm squarely in the Michael Jack Schmidt era and the Gary Carter era. And ever since then, I've known that, the Mets and the Phillies have been a pretty good rivalry. So current regular season series stands at 493 to 458. And that's the Phillies on top, 493 to 458. The largest victory in the series was 19 runs. Philadelphia wins 26-7. And the longest win streak is tied at 10 in the series. So such a history in the NL East between these two teams, but incredibly close in terms of record at 493 and 458. Jim Bunning. Okay. Jim Bunning threw a no-hitter on Father's Day of 1964. He threw a perfect game. All right, Father's Day in 1964. In my possession, one of my most prized possessions, I have the article clipping from the next day, and I have 2 ticket stubs to the perfect game from Father's Day 1964. Jim Bunning went on to a career in Congress. If you guys aren't familiar with Jim Bunning out there, he ended up being a congressman. But Jim Bunning had a perfect game in 1964 on Father's Day, and my dad was actually in attendance. So I have 2 mementos from Jim Bunning's perfect game in 1964, including, I got two ticket stubs anyway, and I have newspaper clipping. I got to bring that book in to show you sometime. You'll get a kick out of that. But Jim Bunning's perfect game was at Shea Stadium against the Mets. So all part of that rivalry. Who got number 7, SPG?
So coming in at number 7 on my list is it's more of a city rivalry. It's more of a fan rivalry than it is an actual rivalry between these two ball clubs. But coming in at number 7, I've got the Crosstown Classic, the Windy City Showdown, the Chicago Showdown, the Red Line Series.
The Northsiders versus the Southsiders.
It's a North Side versus South Side thing in Chicago, the Cubs and White Sox. With them being in opposite leagues and interleague play not really coming into the picture until the 90s, I guess it was. There's not a lot of history between these actual teams, between these teams actually meeting on the field. But it's a fan thing. The fans hate each other, the rivalry there, North Side, South Side. The cursed teams, they went so long where they both just were looking for a World Series and hadn't had success in like a century each. So it's not like they had met up in a World Series or anything over the years. And being in opposite leagues, AL and NL, they didn't play each other much. But just the fact that it's an in-city rivalry, and with interleague play now, it's kicked up a notch a little bit where they do play each other on a regular basis, including, I believe, next weekend. There's a Windy City Showdown happening. So interleague play next week. The Chicago teams will be playing. That's what I got at number 7.
At number 6, I got something that's kind of, relatively new. The Milwaukee Brewers moved from the American League to the National League. I believe it was 1998. And ever since 1998, they have had this beef with the Chicago Cubs. The series total, although limited, is 173-162 in favor of the Cubs. But in 2006, Milwaukee fans got so upset and tired of Cubs fans taking over Miller Park that they initiated a campaign called Take Back Miller Park. And ever since then, there has been this just heated, bitter Twitter wars and fan rivalries, and the I-94 series, which it has become known as, is really heating up as a rivalry in Major League Baseball.
It really is, yeah. The fans don't like each other, especially the Brewers fans hating the Cubs fans.
They hate them. Well, they come over and they take out your park. I don't know.
The I-94 rivalry actually is my number 6 on my list as well.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
See, I thought I was going outside the box there. I didn't think that you would even think that was a rivalry, given the limited they started playing in 1969, and it still counts, even though they were called the Seattle Pilots at the time, it still counts as a portion of what we're speaking about. But given the limited amount of games between the two franchises, I didn't even think that it would even be on your radar. So that's cool that you got it at number 6 as well.
Yeah, it was only 21 years ago when they started playing. It was interleague at the time, and then shortly after that, Milwaukee went to the National League. So it is.
When I was a kid, Milwaukee was a Yankees rival.
Yeah,
because they were both in the AL East.
Milwaukee and Cleveland and
Detroit. When I was a kid, divisional play has kind of changed things.
So to go along with your point, it's not a traditional rivalry by any means, but there is a developing hatred among those fan bases in recent years as division rivals now, and. Yeah, that was one that kind of caught my eye as an up-and-coming rivalry, and should be interesting to see how that goes because they're both very good teams again this year, and they were very good last year and kind of had a little bit of a race there, which the Cubs ended up running away with at the end of the year. But, it is a current active rivalry in baseball.
It's one to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah.
I got another one of those coming up later on the list that's kind of current and something to keep an eye on in terms of fireworks. But it's funny that we both have that at number 6. At number 5, I got Yanks. I have the New York Yankees and the Brooklyn and Los Angeles Dodgers. may come as a surprise to a lot of people that are fans of the modern game that, the Yankees and the Dodgers actually had a very heated rival prior to the advent of interleague play. I don't think that – let me check. Hold on one second. I want to check how many times they've actually played in the regular season. 7-6 in favor of the Dodgers, so 13 games in the regular season since interleague play has started. Interleague play used to only consist of playing division against division. I don't know how many years that went on for, maybe 4 or 5 of the first years of interleague play were just the AL East played the NL East, and the AL Central played the NL Central, and I think there was 2 crossover series during interleague play. So you would take, the Mets would play the Yankees, and the Yankees would play the Braves, and they would go all the way down their division, and then maybe the Yankees got Cincinnati and Arizona, and those were their 2 out of division. And then interleague play changed. But 7-6 in the regular season. But where this rivalry really comes in, they have met numerous times in the World Series. So 1941, the Yankees defeat the Dodgers 4-1. 1947, the Yankees defeat the Dodgers 4-3. 49, the Yankees. 52, the Yankees. 53, the Yankees. 55, the Dodgers finally break through and beat the Yankees 4-3. 56, the Yankees beat the Dodgers. 63, the Dodgers beat the Yankees. 77 and 78, back-to-back years, the Yankees defeat the Dodgers, the Bronx's burning years. And then 1981, the Dodgers beat the Yankees 3 years later. So maybe not so much current guts to this rivalry, but if you ask anybody in New York, especially people in New York that are still current fans of the Dodgers, very heated rivalry. My buddy Dan, if you're out there, Dan and Mark, really the only 2 Dodgers fans I know, very adamant Yankee haters, first and foremost. They're Yankee haters and not Dodger lovers, even though they love the Dodgers. If you guys are out there, why don't you guys chime in with a couple comments on why you guys like to be on the Dodger bandwagon there for your entire life. I can't really call you bandwagon fans, but let us know what appeals you to the Dodgers. A lot of people come from the roots of dem bums and the Yankees being elitists, and the Brooklyn Dodgers really represented that working class guy, and that's really the more of the teeth of the rivalry is that they were actually in the same town for a very long time. Before the Dodgers became this Hollywood team and this LA team, the Dodgers and the Yankees essentially shared a city with the Giants as well. But the Dodgers and the Yankees, they shared a city, and it just created a great rivalry. I don't know if you got that on your list somewhere later, but I think that it warrants mentioning the Dodgers, especially given that they've met in the World Series so many times. Granted, in earlier years, but I think that warrants mentioning as one of the best rivalries, at least in my mind. I hate the Dodgers just as much as I hate the Red Sox. So I'm being very objective here on the mic, right? Dodgers-Yankees is what I got at number 5. What you got, buddy?
This was already on your list, but I got the Mets and the Phillies rivalry. And that rivalry really got kicked up a notch. It was 2005, I think, when the Mets signed closer Billy Wagner away from the Phillies. And that really kind of threw some gas on that fire and brought some real hatred. You had Jimmy Rollins on that team stirring the pot through the media, always would make comments, taking jabs at the Mets. And they had some, especially, 10 years ago, when both teams, the Phillies, they were a World Series contender at that point and eventually ended up winning a World Series shortly after that. But yeah, that's a pretty heated division rivalry right there. NL East wise, I think that's probably the most bitter rivalry of that division. In New York and Philadelphia too, 2 rabid sports cities, to put it lightly. So the fans, we know how fans can be in Philadelphia, no matter what sport you're talking about. New York fans, they're a different breed of their own. So a lot of these rivalries too, and I mentioned it with the Chicago Cubs and White Sox earlier. A lot of this ends up being more about the fans than it is about the players. With some notable exceptions that we'll get to later. But as far as the Philly-New York rivalry goes, I'd had to throw that in there and put the Phillies and Mets at my number 5.
So I'm going to go back to the Mets at my number 4. And you might have this somewhere on. Given that you had the Windy City series, I got to expect that you're going to have the Subway series somewhere.
I got the Subway series at number 4.
Interesting day. We're on the same page again. Go figure. The Yankees and the Mets. Subway series. Met in 2000. I remember it well. A crisp October night. A broken bat flying towards a steroid-ridden freak.
Some words were said.
Some things were thrown. And at the end, Michael Piazza took his first base, thus spawning this hatred between the Mets and the Yankees. I hate the Mets fans more than I hate the Mets. And I'm sure that, Mets fans out there hate Yankees fans more than they hate the Yankees.
As a Yankees fan, we talked about it a little bit before we went on the air today. I really have no hatred for the Mets at all. In fact, I almost do root for them. I like, that year when it was the Mets Yankees in the World Series. That was so cool. Like the hype around that leading into that World Series, that was exciting. And I think in an ideal world, that would be happening more often. Yankees and Mets facing off in the World Series and having a Subway series. So I have no animosity towards the Mets.
I don't either. As funny as I'm trying to be or sound right now, I don't have any hatred towards the Mets. I legitimately hate the Dodgers. Legitimately. And maybe it's something that's in my genetics from the old Brooklyn and New York days, but I hate the Dodgers. I don't hate the Mets. I think success for the Mets is success for the Yankees. But this whole it's our town stuff, not cool, Mets fans. Not cool. Came back to bite you in the ass, and it continues to bite you in the ass. And you still haven't won a title since 1986. But that's none of my business. But I don't hate them. I don't hate the Mets. I have a genuine dislike for some of the Mets fans, but I have more of a dislike for Yankees fans than I do for Mets fans. And maybe we can get that. Maybe we can throw the Yankees fans out there out of the baseline someday because they frustrate the hell out of me. 15-1 in their last 16. You got guys complaining about the lineup. Shape up. Stop being an asshole.
I saw you made a new Yankees fan buddy on Facebook.
Oh, what was his name? What was his name? We gotta say what's up to him today. What is it, Joe Russo? No,
I'll see if I can find it. We don't want to say the wrong name.
I have no dislike for the Mets out there. Not at all. But still a pretty good rivalry. Current rivalry, it's 66-46 in favor of the Yankees. 15-0 by the Yankees. June 14th, 2009 is the largest victory. And like we said, the Yankees beat the Mets in the 2000 series. Moving on.
So it's worth noting, too, before we do move on. You mentioned the bat throwing in the World Series and all that. It's worth noting that there was an incident in July that same season where Roger Clemens hit Mike Piazza in the head.
Dome piece.
With a pitch.
Right in the dome.
And I'm sure there was a whole bunch of words and everything said about that incident in the World Series when Piazza was frustrated. But it's kind of funny that Piazza's the one that gets beamed in the head, and he's also somehow the one that's getting a bat thrown at him too. But yeah, that was definitely a major moment in that Yankees. Probably the most notable moment in the Yankees-Mets rivalry, interleague Subway Series rivalry.
Not going to be any suspense in our top three. All right, that's probably just what order that we have them in.
And we may have them in the same order. I don't know. We'll see.
Not going to be much suspense in our top three. At number 3, I got the Dodgers and the Giants. This rivalry, another rivalry rooted in New York, playing in the same league, and back then it's not divisional play. They're competing for the same pennant every year. You look at iconic moments, Bobby Thompson's homer off of Ralph Branca in a one-game playoff. The Giants win the pennant. Iconic moments in that series. Always a good rivalry to check out. It's always a late game, so I can always check it out 19 times a year. Dodgers-Giants. So I got number 3.
So we have a different number 3. I'm sure, like you said, we have the same top 3, but we have a little bit of a different order. So I've got the Chicago Cubs and St. Louis Cardinals is my third notable rivalry in Major League Baseball.
Well, let's save the suspense and just say I got them at number 2.
Okay, so there you go. So they're in our top 3. A very historic rivalry.
Played this weekend.
The Route 66 rivalry.
We're going to sweep this weekend.
Possibly. We'll see. They're playing right now.
Is this still going?
They're playing right now, yeah.
I used to be on this.
The Cubs are up 1-0 in the
I forgot it was the night game.
first inning. Just started.
I forgot. Where is my head?
So a very notable and a key rivalry in Major League Baseball with a lot of history. They've played over 2,400 games against each other.
2,400?
2,400 games.
Who pitched the majority of them? Old Hoss Rathborn?
Probably Old Hoss, yeah. The Cubs are up in the series. This tells you how even it's been, at least in the regular season. Traditionally, the Cardinals have had a lot more success as far as championships, and we all know the story of the Cubs and their drought. But it's actually pretty close. The Cubs are up.
The Cubs are up in the all-time series?
By about, let's see, about less than 100 games.
I'm pretty sure that I would have argued with you.
I would have thought that the Cardinals would have had.
Given that the Cardinals are second all-time in World Series?
So, yeah, it's the Cubs have won 1,221 games. The Cardinals have won 1,161.
That's incredibly close.
Incredibly close for 2,401, and now
incredibly
2 meetings, I guess, if you include today. 19 ties as well.
You remember that? Remember back in the day? Last game we saw tied was the All-Star game when Bud Selig declared it a tie, and then the All-Star game became the determining home field advantage in the fucking World Series. Right? Tie in Major League Baseball. Just start a runner at second before the inning starts.
No kidding.
That'll clear it all up.
So the Route 66 rivalry is who I got at number 3.
You look at the iconic players that have come out of that rivalry.
And that's your number 2, right? Is that what you said?
It's my number 2, yeah. You know, you got Stan Musial and Bob Gibson and Ron Santo and
then
Ernie
you got
Banks.
the of course, steroid era, but
Mark McGwire
and Sammy Sosa home run battle.
So it really brought that to the forefront for some modern baseball fans, what that rivalry really was. For my number 2, or no, who do you got for your number 2? I'm sorry.
My number 2 is it was the rivalry you had at number 3, the San
Dodgers,
Francisco Giants and the LA Dodgers.
You want to know something remarkable about that one? Is we just said how close across a big sample size that the Cubs and Cardinals were. 1240 to 1211 in favor of the Giants with 17 ties. 1240, 1211, and 17. Over that kind of sample size, over 2,000 plus games, to be within 20, 30 games of each other, it's impressive. First meeting between the Dodgers-Giants was May 3rd, 1890.
Yeah, it's a rivalry that has changed states over the years.
Still the same rivals.
Changed coasts over the years.
They're a little bit farther away between San Francisco and L.A. than they were when they were in Brooklyn in the Polo Grounds. Where were the New York Giants technically? Where was their home? Where was the Polo Grounds?
Like where geographically were the Polo Grounds?
I mean, so you're synonymous with the Yankees in the Bronx. You're synonymous with the Dodgers in Brooklyn. The Cubs are on the north side. That's what I mean. The Polo Grounds was in Manhattan.
No kidding.
Manhattan. So they really, if the Dodgers stayed, they're really the New York team, right? If the Giants stay, they're really the New York in the square in Manhattan. Of course, when the Polo Grounds was in Manhattan probably didn't look like it did today.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, Polo Grounds.
And there were many variations of the Polo Grounds over the years too. I just quickly looking here, it looks like there was 4 at least versions of a Polo Grounds stadium.
No postseason history for these two storied franchises. given that divisional play has not started, too awful long ago, and we didn't have the wild card.
And the Giants are another team. It's kind of easy to forget now because they did win 3 World Series in the last 10 years or so.
They scuffled from.
But they were another team that went many, many years with almost no postseason success, let alone a World Series championship.
Agreed. They did have one interrupted by an earthquake, and they had one interrupted by Mike Scioscia in 2002. Barry Bonds having his shot that year and coming up short. So you don't look at it like they haven't competed in the postseason against each other, really, because of how heated they are in September. Big, meaningful, probably 6 games they play every September, and it just seems like they play all 19 in September, the Dodgers and the Giants. So you got that at number 2. Both of us are leaving one key off of our list, so it's probably, everybody out there knows that we're going to talk about the Yankees and the Sox right now.
I think Tyler Austin and Pedro Martinez
and Don
Zimmer would all agree with our choice at number 1. The New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. Perhaps the most hated and infamous or famous, depending on how you're looking at it, rivalry in all of sports. Arguably, of course, but certainly in that discussion, no matter what your opinion is or which team you're a fan of. Big series coming up this week, as we mentioned early in the show. Both teams right now on fire, playing great baseball. The pitching is phenomenal. The hitting is phenomenal. You see what Mookie Betts is doing. You see what Didi Gregorius and Aaron Judge are doing, what J.D. Martinez is doing, what Chris Sale is doing, what Severino is doing, and what the bullpens are doing.
Craig Kimbrell off to a really good start so far in the season.
This point in the year, of course, it is only May, and there's a
It's
lot,
not, though.
I
mean, it is only May,
but
we got 19 games against these guys, and I shouldn't use the term we. I should
even
a little more objectivity, but
more so, though.
Buck Foston.
This is a chance for a statement, more so than it's a chance to gain ground in the standings. This is a chance to make a statement for either team.
Because the Yankees could theoretically, with a Yankee sweep, they go 9-1 in three straight series against Houston, Cleveland, and Boston. They go 9-1.
So Boston, what was their start? 17-1 or something? 16-1.
16-1.
16-1. They start, and all of a sudden, here are the Yankees nipping on their heels, 1 game back
after a 16-2 stretch.
Now this is a chance for Boston to basically say, nope, we started 16-1. We know you guys are the hottest team in baseball right now, but nope, you're still going to have to go through us. And this is a chance for the Yankees to say, you know what, Boston, you started 16-1, and here we are, second week of May, and we're in first place despite that. So it's going to be a fun series to watch, with all the players that I mentioned. It's practically 2 all-star teams just about to just go at each other, toe-to-toe here. It's early, but this series could be something we look back on later in the season and say, hey, you remember that series in May when the Yankees had Boston come in and swept them, and that just from that point on, they're in first place for the rest of the season, or it could go the other way. You remember that series when Boston came in and they took care of the Yankees and really cooled them off after that crazy run, and, man, it was hard to dig out of that hole after that series. It could go either way. So it's going to be a fun series to watch. And add on to just a few weeks ago when they were in Boston, the whole Tyler Austin thing. He gets suspended 5 games. They have a little mini brawl. So you have a little bit of that extra.
Also got Joe Kelly getting suspended in that.
Joe Kelly, too. So you have a little bit of extracurricular activities that just happened, only a couple weeks ago that kind of, again, throw some more gas onto this fire and revive that fire.
Maybe the biggest $125,000 in the history of sports was spent to create this rivalry. The Yankees receive Babe Ruth,
George Herman Ruth,
for $125,000 in 1916. Maybe the most important $125,000 in the history of this game. And the next 95, 96, whatever it's been, almost 100 years, have been nothing short of phenomenal. Obviously, there's so many memorable moments, but in my lifetime, I remember the Yankees coming back from like 6 games down with like 9 to play and sweeping a 5-game set. They had a doubleheader and a 4-game set with a doubleheader mixed into one of those games. They sweep a 5-game set and they called it the Boston Massacre. Maybe 2004-ish, 2003. It might have been, no, it was 2003. And then 2004, they show up and they beat us after being down 3-0. And then they finally break the curse. And they come through, and ever since 2004, this rivalry has meant a lot more to me and to maybe everybody else. It's just gained so much momentum.
You can even go back to 2003, which was the Aaron Boone home run year. Aaron Boone. And a little bit of a personal story about that. You mentioned I'm in a band, and a couple of the guys that are in the band, my brother and my cousin, Ryan Gaffney and Johnny Sullivan, they went to school out in Boston. They went to college out in Boston. So we would frequently go out there and play gigs in Boston when they were going to college there, which was a blast. And so we scheduled a gig, months in advance, and, time's getting closer, and it's baseball playoff season now. And now I'm thinking, oh, man, wait, the Yankees and Red Sox have a ALCS coming up, and we got to play a gig in Boston. And then all of a sudden it was, oh, wait, we're playing on the night of Game 7 of the ALCS in Boston? We have a show to play tonight, and it's the Yankees-Boston Game 7 ALCS? And the game didn't start out so well for the Yankees. They were losing by a couple runs for a good portion of the beginning of the game. I want to say it was maybe like the 6th inning when they kind of started mounting a little bit of a comeback. So I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, I was so excited for this gig, but now I'm looking at maybe we're going to go down there. We're going to be playing for a Boston victory party, and what the hell, man? I don't want to play this gig anymore, but we sucked it up, and we went down there, and we're in the car, and we were listening to it on the radio down there, and then I think it was Jason Giambi hit a key home run to get him back in that game, and all of a sudden we're kind of like, all right, we got some hope here. We got some hope. We go down, we set up our gear, and we're playing. And not too many people are paying attention to us, but the bar that we were playing at closed kind of early, so we figured we got to get started now, or else we're going to get barely any set time, and we're not going to be able to get through too many songs. So sure enough, they have a TV right in front of us, and we're just glued to the TV even though we're trying to play this gig. And Aaron Boone comes up and hits an ALCS game-winning home run against the Boston Red Sox. And I said on the microphone, ladies and gentlemen, George Herman Babe Ruth just hit a home run, and the Yankees are going to the World Series. And there was some people that were not very pleased with me, I can tell you that. There were some people crying, walking out of the bar, and that shows you the intensity of that rivalry. So the Yankees-Boston rivalry is our clear number one, and we're going to dive right into that on Tuesday with this series coming up.
I can't wait. I'm actually be in attendance for Tuesday's game, which would be awesome to go watch Luis Severino. But yeah, Yankees-Red Sox. There's your 7th inning stretch, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. Now it's time to get to our favorite part. We got to go out of the baseline.
Out of the baseline. So there was a lot of really good positive stories in baseball this week. We mentioned Pujols, we mentioned Ichiro moving into a front office role. There was a lot of good positive news. There wasn't a lot of negative news,
except for who?
Except for the scenario that happened with the New York Mets, with Matt Harvey refusing to go to the minor leagues and getting designated for assignment.
Wouldn't have had to refuse to go to the minor leagues. Should he have accepted his move to the bullpen?
That was part of it too. Yep,
stay on a major league roster, get paid.
So there's 2 separate things that he refused to do, basically pitch in the bullpen. And he did pitch in the bullpen a little bit this last week or two, but he was very ineffective.
Throwing 88.
His heart wasn't into it. His head wasn't into it, which you can't do that. You got to go out there and do whatever your team needs you to do. and you perform. And if you start performing in the bullpen, either all of a sudden you turn yourself into a potential super reliever type here, or you earn your way back into the rotation and turn your career around. You have an opportunity to turn your career around if you are a good team player. Now, you go ahead and you do that. You refuse the minor league assignment. You refuse to pitch in the bullpen, or maybe not necessarily refuse. That might be the wrong word for the pitching in the bullpen. But, you're not into it. You're half-assing it. And now your career is kind of crumbling right in front of your eyes because you refuse to be a team player.
It's bad. It's bad for the Dark Knight right now. So, Matt Harvey, you found a way to manage to get yourself out of the baseline.
Out of the baseline, Matt Harvey. And I want to give a shout-out, an honorable mention to Out of the Baseline, the Baseline's newest fan, John Bruno. John, I hope you're listening. Hope you learned a few things about baseball tonight, buddy. It's time for bed, kiddo. Have a good night. All right, guys. It's been a fun show. Enjoy some baseball tonight. The Cardinals-Cubs rivalry. Sunday Night Baseball going on right now. Yankees-Red Sox rivalry this week. We got Cubs-White Sox next week. Check out the website, disruptionnetwork.net, for all sorts of great content, all the other phenomenal podcast and video cast shows that they got up there.
And get out there and get something nice for Mom this week, too.
Don't forget about that. We may not be here next week. We will likely be taking the week off. Sunday next week is Mother's Day. You might see us on a different day of the week, but we will not be here on Sunday. We'll be spending time with our moms and probably catching a little baseball in there, too. My mom likes to watch some baseball.
Pink Bat Day. I love it.
My mom likes
You know what I like most about Pink Bat Day? Is the guys that have a good Pink Bat Day and use the pink bat for the next week till it breaks.
Right.
All right. Thus lending to the superstitious nature of baseball
That's
players.
when you know somebody's been on a hot streak, is a week or two after Mother's Day, they're still swinging a pink bat.
Thanks for sticking around with us, everybody. Thanks for watching us. Be sure to watch all the good content at disruptionnetwork.net. You can also check out past episodes of The Baseline on YouTube, the Twitch, and on disruptionnetworks.net. For SPG, I'm JP. Thanks for keeping it inside the baseline, and we are out.
We're out.
Easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish, and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Passalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Passalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Passalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Passalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.